Ward, and I'm chairing the meeting today. So I'd just like to go around the table so that everybody could introduce themselves.
Chair, Councillor Gurmail Singh Lal, representing Heston East Ward.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Davina Ram, representing Cranford Ward.
Councillor Khalik Malik, representing Cranford Ward.
Councillor Kamarjit Kaur, representing Heston East.
Councillor Shivraj Garewal, representing Heston Central.
Councillor Sindh Singh Purewal, Heston Central Ward.
Thank you. And we've had a few apologies this evening.
Yeah, so we've had apologies from Councillor Lillybath, Councillor Sukhbir Singh Dhaliwal, Councillor Amrit Man, Councillor Shantala Rajwat and Councillor Balraj Sarai.
Right, okay, so we've noted those. Any declarations of interest? Yes.
There's an agenda item for Cranford Action Group. I'm an executive member of Cranford Action Group, so it need to be declared. Thank you.
Okay, that's great.
I would also like to declare I'm also a member of Cranford Action Group.
Amazing, thank you. And I'd just like to go through the minutes of the last meeting that was held on the... Oh, sorry, Councillor Purewal.
Just declare interest, Heston Action Group, I'm a member.
You're a member, amazing. Just if we could go through the minutes of the last meeting that was held on the 21st of January. Pages 3 to 5. We've just had a bit of a mix-up on the agenda to a bit of miscommunication, but I've got lovely Sergeant Williams here, and I'm going to stick him on top of the agenda so that he can give us an update and then get back to work. Thank you.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. In terms of the policing picture at the moment, we're currently, all 4 wards are currently under the pre-COVID performance. Heston East currently 14.5% under the pre-COVID. Heston Central are currently 16%. Heston West at 18%, and Cranford are sitting at 12%. Generally, areas that currently concern us at the moment, obviously, are the ones violence, particularly closer to the town centre, but obviously border on to Heston East. There was a stabbing in Heston East, which was drug-related in the last couple of weeks, and a few other incidents, especially around Hounslow West, just on the Heston Central border. In terms of the overall policing picture, obviously everyone's aware of the current stuff that's happened around with Sarah Everard, and that directly impacts on us at neighbourhoods because we work with, the public, and trust is massively important between us and the communities that we serve. So that obviously has a big impact on us, and trying to work with you in the community in order to try and rebuild that trust, and we understand that will take a long time with some people, but we can only do the best that we can do and try and work with everyone in the council to try and make that happen. The last 2 years have been very difficult in terms of policing. Although the crimes have gone down, there's lots that's been going on, and major incidents or protests that have been going on over central London, especially over the summer, has had quite a large impact, especially on our resources. Myself and several members of the team have been abstracted for quite long periods of time, and that will obviously have an impact on who you see out on the streets. Also, we've had, unfortunately, we've lost a couple of, we've lost one long-serving officer, PC Matt Scales, who's moved on. And we're also going to be losing PCSO Davina Littlefield, who's moving at the end of next month. And also PC Fraj Chowdhury will be moving on from Heston Central probably over the beginning of next year. There are plans in place in order to replace those officers, and we should be hearing in the next month as to who's going to be coming to do that, and once we do, we'll let you know. There's also good news in terms of Hounslow Town Centre itself. They're going to be getting a dedicated team of 1, 3 and 21 to police the town centre surrounding areas. So hopefully that will help us with ability to have more visible policing out on the streets and target some of the problems that we've got. The only thing that we need to be mindful of is obviously is displacement. If having more people in town centre, is that going to push some of the crime out, possibly out towards our wards, but we will have plans in place to try and combat that and deal with that. Other than that, say generally things are going ahead. We should be getting some new members of staff. That will impact a little bit in our productivity a little bit because all the new people we will get will be newer members of staff. So fairly inexperienced officers. Take a little bit of time for them to come up to speed with the complexities of neighbourhood policing. But I know, along with the council who've implemented some new housing officers and to assist with us and obviously work with the LBH, we'll try and minimise the impact it has on you as a community.
Okay, great. Councillor Malik.
Thank you, Chair. Let me start by saying that you guys doing during the pandemic, you was excellent work, even though it was a difficult time and everybody have a serious effects of this thing. But I've seen during that period you was going all out about, you were visible, you were doing whatever possible. However, I've got a couple of concerns which I want to raise with you. Number one is the Cranford. We used to have full team in the past, which I have taken with the borough commander, but I haven't seen any outcome or result of that. We lost, I think, to start with 3 officers out of 4, and then I have seen a temporary one coming over from somewhere. I don't know whether he will continue or he is temporary for a certain time. Could you update us when we will have a full team in Cranford, because Cranford is right around the boundary of Heathrow Airport and it's quite important ward. So therefore, I'll appreciate if you can, number one, update me that when we will have full team, and if not, what can we do to have full team in Cranford, number one. Thank you.
Unfortunately, I can't give you a date as to when the new officers are going to be arriving. I believe we were waiting an update. The LRPM was on Monday. So I think I'm just waiting for updates as to who's been posted, where they've been posted and how they've been posted. Unfortunately, neighbourhood policing, not just in Hounslow but across the Met, has suffered a little bit in terms of staffing. Just trying to attract officers and the right sort of officers to come to neighbourhood policing. But we're working to try and work out why that is. Hopefully with the new people coming, I would imagine if they've been posted in the LRPM, it's normally 2 months. So when they get posted, it's normally 2 months from when they get posted to when they actually start. So probably looking at the beginning of next year for all the numbers to become in place. And I think they were looking at fully staffing neighbourhood policing across the West area, I think is what their aim is. There will obviously be bits that people that move on and things that happen with that, but that's the plan as far as I'm aware.
Can I have second answer? Thanks for your answer. Would you mind to find out exactly when Cranford will have or embrace with the officer when will be allocated, or any possibility of when might happen? Find out, and if you can drop in an email, that will be helpful.
Yes, certainly. I'll get Sergeant Tyrant to, once we get it through, make sure he updates you all, and I'll try to update, obviously, all the councillors in terms of when, who we're getting. The other thing to mention also, since the last meeting I didn't mention, was that we've had a change of inspector. Obviously, D. O'Brien, who was with us for a long time, has moved on promotion, and we've now got Inspector Anil Sharma, who's now taken over on her role. So I'm sure he will, if he hasn't already, be trying to come and be in contact with everyone, just to introduce himself and to go through any concerns that you have.
Good. Councillor Lal.
Chair, Sergeant Williams mentioned PC mat scales. I'd just like to minute today in terms of Heston East Ward that for us he was an excellent officer. He knew the beat very, very well, and it's such a shame that we are losing him at this point in time. But coming back to Councillor Kulik's request for more officers for Cranford, my question is more generic. I think in terms of clarification, and if you are able to provide it, or maybe you can provide it later, in terms of borough strength, where it should be in terms of numbers and where it is, and what percentage deficit there is at the moment.
As far as I'm aware, I believe we're not at a deficit. I think the issue is that we've got such a large amount of new officers coming through that's taken us over the amount, but obviously they are still going through training. So I think in the process, I think we've got something like 300 officers potentially coming through training. Not just that, there's various different schemes that they're coming through. So we've also got police now officers who come for 2 years, then some stay on, some move, and then we get the other officers. So I don't think it's necessarily that we haven't got the numbers, it's more whilst they're young and in service, we're trying to have to train them, and that's where the rotation thing has come in, where you've seen an influx of people come into the ward only for 6 months and then move on. It's in order that we can train them properly so they get a little bit of neighbourhood policing, a little bit of response policing and the other bits that involve. So when they come out and they get through the probation, they're actually more well-rounded officers. So hopefully, I think what the plan is that the ones who will be coming to us are people who have just finished the end of their rotation. So they've just coming into the end of their probation, and I think the plan is that they were then going to use those officers to backfill into neighbourhoods, and then obviously when the town centre team comes, then they will then look at backfilling through into there, and then to keep the response numbers as high as we possibly can as well, because of the vital work that they do.
Any other councillors? Just one question I have. With the recent death of our MP, Sir David Amess, what measures have you put in place as in like security for MPs, but also for us councillors as well? Because I mean, you know, I have a ward surgery coming up on the 6th of November. Bit hesitant, you know, in terms of going security.
In terms of the MPs, I was actually asked to look at contacting them over the weekend to try and put something in place. They didn't or haven't, none of the two that we have here and of the ones who cover the West area, none of them actually had any surgeries over the next week. I think that is something that's being looked at centrally, and there's a team that at the Houses of Parliament that will be coordinating with them in and around their security. I think not problem, but I know a lot of MPs are very reluctant to have police always at their surgeries because, you know, they want to attract the whole of their community, and sometimes by having police there, they feel that will put off some people coming to speak to them in terms of their surgeries. So I think that's a discussion that each and every MP will have with that team to work out from that. In terms of yourselves, I think the best thing we can do, obviously, is to if you let us know when you've got surgeries or if you've got specific concerns or what's going and then we'll have those discussions and look what we can put in place, really. I think it's let's do it on an individual basis rather than saying, right, we're going to always have someone there, because unfortunately, we're not always going to be able to do that. But I think the best if we can have those discussions, put something in place between yourselves, and obviously it'll be a good opportunity if you're there and we're there to try and build up a bit more community engagement with us as well. So.
Because it was really fun, just before the meeting, my fellow councillor, Gariwal, said that, you know, if we go along to the ward surgery and we need to run, me and Councillor Pariwal run, what will happen with you? Because obviously I have a disability of MS and I'm in a scooter. I said, well, you'd have to carry me out then, don't leave me back there by myself. So, you know, we're thinking ahead.
Unfortunately, we have to be careful.
Yeah, so
Yes.
we have to, yeah. So, you know, a bit of security.
We've got to take
obviously,
some precautions.
yeah, no, definitely.
Thank you, Chair.
Yeah, so in terms of that, we'll say
Yeah.
speak to the teams individually, myself, and see what we can do, because obviously it depends on the shifts and what times it is. We look at moving around, But also, let's look at doing a risk assessment around, what security is in place, who's coming, how it's publicised, things like that. So it's still, unfortunately, although there's been 2, still very rare. But as we all know, 1 is too many. So.
Thank you. Do we have any questions from the floor for Sergeant? Yes. Would you like to come to the end table and then just... Okay, yeah, he's got a mic. Sorry, I do apologise.
I've recently taken the role as chair for the Cranford panel for policing as of 2 weeks ago. I've got an update, so PC Gill's going to be moving off in December and we'll get a replacement. Apparently we're getting 1 more officer, so that will be 2 plus a PCO. I wanted to ask around the boroughs scheme and where the police fit in with safe neighbourhoods and what that could potentially mean for some of the work that we could do as residents in the community supporting the police.
Sorry, in terms of what exactly? So, obviously, neighbourhood policing is set by MOPAC, so set by the mayor. Sorry, a moment there. And so we will always try and prioritise both team and neighbourhoods where we can. And the idea is to try and keep us as full as possible in order to do all the work that we need to do to try and prevent crime happening in the first place. I know for my own, I've been in neighbourhood policing now for 4 years. I think one of the biggest challenges we face is just community engagement, is any community engagement. The councillors here come along to the ward panel meetings with my officers, and we're lucky if we get more than 5, 6 people on most of those ward panels. So any engagement we can have with the community is good engagement. Anything, feedback we can go. I went with them over the summer and we delivered over 1,000 leaflets, and we got no reply, ASB in the area. Not 1 reply out of 1,000 leaflets. So it's very difficult at the moment, and obviously the things that have happened in the news and other things impacts that as well, and people stop trusting us. And the communities that we need to engage with have the less trust in with us. So anything that we can do to drive that community engagement, to get people involved and telling us what the problems are, because quite often the stuff that we get is when we go speak to people, they ask us what we're doing about the problems, and then you say, well, have you told us? And they say no. So it's trying to break down that endless circle where people don't think we won't engage or won't do anything, so don't report it, and then we're not doing anything because they haven't reported it. So it's the chicken and egg. So I know, obviously, with the people here from Heston Action Group, I know they've been doing a lot in terms of the community. You've now got Cranford Action Group as well, which is good. So there's lots of community stuff out there, but for some reason, it's not coming through to us, or we're not getting involved within that. And I think that's the little barrier, not a little barrier, big barrier that we're trying to engage and trying to work with, so that we can better police the local problems and issues that you guys have.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I suggested was talking about deterrence. So while I know the police can't endorse any specific alarm companies, it doesn't stop us as residents approaching alarm companies and asking about neighbourhood schemes that they could put into place that might be encouraging residents to actually install them, even when it comes to floodlights. So I ask if you can think outside of the box, how you can utilise residents more, because we're not restricted by some of the red tape that you have as police or by the councils and positions that you have. There's the things that we can do, and we have some ideas to put in place. So other than men on the ground or women on the ground, there are other things that we could potentially look at for deterrence that I would like to open up options around. We don't have to discuss it right now, but I'm sure there are some incentives that we could give residents to just protect themselves, which will then, in turn, protect the rest of the community.
Yes, definitely. Yeah, definitely. I mean, the one thing that we're currently looking at the moment is in terms of the catalytic convert thefts. Obviously, it's something that's massively impacting our wards. We're currently in the process of purchasing a load of kits to actually go onto the catalytic converters. So if they do get stolen, we can start tracing them. And obviously, hopefully, that will also impact on them, so they'll stop. They won't do it. So yes, definitely, we would love to have that conversation. We'd love to get involved with all the communities. I know Councillor Mann Malek, sorry, was also looking at a vehicle and had gone down that route as well. So anything on everything that you can think of, we'd welcome and happily discuss it. But probably the best way, I would say, in terms of doing that initially is speaking to your local ward team initially, and because they're on the ground and they know the specific problems that you have on that ward, and then I can then sort of push it up if there's anything extra that we can do in terms of that.
Thank you.
Would you be able to leave your name and number with Joan so that we can get in
Yeah,
contact
sure.
with you? Thank you. Anybody else? Any other questions for Sergeant before we let him go? Okay, that's great. Thank you. Thank you for the update. And we'll see you at the next meeting next year. Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to the MS Society that have a presentation for us today. So we have David and the MS Society in Hounslow are quite newly formed during the pandemic. Something close to my heart because I have MS. I've had it for about 11 years. So, I'm regularly in contact with David and his group. And I thought it'd be nice for them to come along this evening and share their knowledge. Thank you. You okay?
I picked the wrong presentation up from Good evening, everybody. It's the first time I've done a presentation, and thank you, Harleen, for me coming. I think the presentation that I've sent is different to the one I've picked up. Never mind. I'll try and do what best I can. I'm Joint Coordinator, David Thurman. My wife joins it with me, and there we are, that's me and the wife. We set it up pre-pandemic. In 2019, I was diagnosed with MS myself. Over 5 years ago, there was a group in Hounslow. It was based in Heston, opposite the Royal Legion. They disappeared, so there wasn't anything to support the community. So we decided to set this up 2020, pre-pandemic. We have about 60 members all in all. We are trying to engage with more members in the borough. There's probably about 200 patients in the borough, all in all. So part of MS, I don't know whether you guys and girls can see it, multiple sclerosis is to do with the brain and the spinal cord. In MS, it's to do with the myelin on your spinal cord that gets damaged, so you get lesions that grow on your spinal cord. So it causes relapses, which is what I've got. So your legs give way, you have bladder and bowel problems. So it's lots of different things that goes off with your body. So you can understand how me and Harley feel with this. You can press the button.
Yeah, no, press it.
Go back, because I think it's going. Oh.
Thank you.
So there, I won't read it all, if you can see it. So that just gives you the different sort of side effects, how it affects people day to day. You've probably heard of fatigue. We suffer a lot with fatigue, so we'd rather do stuff in the morning, because afternoons we're completely zonked out, and I'm sure Harleen feels the same way. Sorry?
I said you need to take over in 5 minutes because I'm feeling a bit fatigued.
All right, not a problem. All right, gotcha. Next one. Keep going. So, who is the MS Society? They were formed in 1953, and they grow to hundreds of groups across the UK. I think we have something like 350 groups all in all. You've gone the wrong way. So what do? We do research. So we involve 220 million in research for MS. At the minute, they're doing one called Stop MS, which they want in 2025 to try and cure MS, which is out of this world, to be honest. So they do all sorts, engagement, fundraising, awareness, lunches, and we've got lists of different medication. I'm on Tysabri, which is a stabilisation drug. There's the new one called Ocrevus, which you take every 6 months. It's very expensive. So about our group, we provide information to local services. So we've got a support volunteer, we've got admin, we've got a fundraiser, we've got activities volunteers. There's about 9 of us. And then we run a coffee morning twice a week, twice a fortnight. Harley comes along. So we are trying to get more and more face-to-face activities. But the problem is we're having to pay for buildings to put on a service that we organise as a charity, which I feel we shouldn't have to do because we are a charity. And hopefully with the councillors and the council support, we can succeed in doing this because we don't make any money. Everything we do, we have to fund ourselves. So we have to go out on the streets and do this. So as on the slide from when we were at Lambton Park, we borrowed that gazebo. We now have our own gazebo, which is supported by the London Borough of Hounslow because they donated money. I think it was about £720. It's in orange, which is their colours, as you can see, but it's also got our logo on top of the roof. So to get involved, you can join up, donate, fundraise, volunteer or campaign. You can sign up on mssociety.org.uk. Get involved. That's it from me. I've kept it brief because I know Harleen's got lots to go through. If you want to know anything else, please ask. If there's any questions, fire away.
Amazing. Thank you, David.
Thank you
for your time. If anybody is interested in knowing a bit more, you can get in touch with David. And we do have our coffee mornings
On
twice a month at 11
till 1.
and we discuss all sorts of stuff. But, you know, you're welcome to join. Councillor Malik.
Thank you, Chair. And thanks for your presentation today, and thanks coming here. We are sitting here, all the councillor. Shortly, can you tell us what you expect from us? How can I help you to even what sort of support you're looking for?
I think it's to support us through the whole of the borough. We cover the whole of Hounslow, so we go out as far as the Chiswick border up to Brentford, Isleworth, so we cover the whole of the TW postcodes. It's just basically to try and help us to support the MS community. If you know there's any buildings that we can use possibly either on a discount, then we don't mind doing a discount, but we said we shouldn't really be paying the £19 an hour for a room. It does get quite cost effective if you're running every month.
Chair, sorry, I couldn't probably put my message across. Are you looking for financial support or volunteer support, or what sort of base, if you can let us know? You mentioned about the 700 something the council has helped you with. Do you need any more help financially or anything? Can you tell us in what sort of support? We are all sitting here. How can we help you in order to move further?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I've got an answer to that. Sorry, my name's Nias Faiz. I'm the administration volunteer, and I'm one of the senior members of the coordinating team. In fact, I chaired the last meeting that you attended, and I also arranged a speaker, Andy Riddle from Professional Deputies. From my perspective, I think 2 key things. One is raising awareness, And I think the council has publications, and I think one of the things that the council can do is raise awareness of MS, and sort of like signpost to us. The other thing I think is, I think the police were right in terms of engagement. We are seeking volunteers to help us do the work. So if anybody wants to volunteer for the work of our group, we would welcome you with open arms. And I'm sure David would concur with that. Speaking as someone who's new to the group, and by the way, I don't have MS, one of the things that I have found is the correlation between MS and dementia. And I say that as a carer for my father, who suffers from vascular dementia. And I'm also, for my sins, lead deputy as appointed by the Court of Protection. So I manage my father's property and financial affairs. And one of the things that I noticed is that in terms of legal mental capacity, there are equal issues for people that suffer, well, suffer is the wrong word, have the condition of both MS and those that suffer, again, suffer is the wrong word, have the condition of the dementia spectrum. There is a key correlation between the two. So one of the things that I think everyone needs to be aware of is having a lasting power of attorney. Because if you don't, you will suffer the same fate that I suffered and my father suffered, and that is going through the Court of Protection and being a deputy. And therefore, what that means is that you are then creating more work for yourself. And I say that as a lay deputy. And I think it's really important that, you know, that awareness is raised. Because I have to confess, before I joined the Homes MS group, I was completely unaware of what the impact of MS is on people that have them. But I am now, working closely with David and others who have the condition. I've become aware, but as I say, one of the consequences of becoming more aware is the key correlation in terms of the potential impacts of people that suffer from MS and those that have the dementia spectrum conditions.
I also say we had to cancel an event at Isleworth that was on the same time as the Polish event because we hadn't got enough volunteers. We can't run these campaigns to raise awareness and the funds that we need to put on activities. I mean, we've been doing for 8 weeks Neuro Heroes, which is a intense physio course on Zoom. I don't know if Harleen went to that one.
Yeah, I did. I attended a couple of sessions and they were quite good.
I mean, for instance,
comfort of your own home and you're getting,
yeah, and it's different to ordinary physio, but it's cost us £530 for 8 weeks for seven members of the borough, and they don't have to be members of the society, which is free to join, but as long as we know you've got MS and you are within the borough. We work closely with the MS nurse, so she's also a Parkinson's nurse. So it's just basically having the counsellors on our side to say, there's this event happening in Hounslow, would you like to come along to have a stand or to display stuff to make awareness of it? I feel strongly that the counsellors and the council could support us in this matter. I know Harleen is supporting me, invited us along to tonight. It's a wonderful chance to come and meet you guys and to support us.
Thank you, David.
Can I just add something to what David has just said? One of the things I think the council could do, and I'm not, let's be clear, we're not asking for direct money from the council. What we're asking for is the opportunity, ability to fundraise. And I'll tell you why. Both myself and David are members of the Hounslow MS Group Grants Panel, which has newly been formed. But we can't actually make any decisions in terms of funding until we get funding available. So therefore, one of the things I think Hounslow Council could help us greatly is give us opportunities to fundraise. I'm just going to,
before Councillor Corr, I'm just going to take Elliot at the back. that's okay, and then I'll...
Thank you, Chair. I'm Elliot Brooks, the Director of Communities. I just wanted to come back on a couple of things, really, and offer some support, because I think much of what you've both said really hits home in certain areas. If I deal with first the awareness, firstly, I think it's working what you're doing. I was at the Area Forum a couple of weeks ago, the Hounslow Area Forum, and you were present there, and I had a conversation with Miriam afterwards, and we've linked. So I think that we can also help in terms of, we have voluntary sector newsletters that go out electronically. We need to get you a space in that. So I've made a note to link with you, David, afterwards, and make sure you get some space and it goes out to all councillors, all voluntary sector groups. We're also introducing a new way of working, something called Community Solutions, where we're trying to find and work with voluntary sector organisations who are already out in the borough, like at your coffee mornings. We would like to come along to those, hear what conversations are going on, maybe link people with other voluntary sector organisations with issues and support requirements that they might need. And then finally, it sounds like you're short of volunteers. Obviously, the council has a relationship with Ealing and Hounslow CVS, where there are pools of volunteers. We're just now introducing a new volunteering app where people can sign up much easier. So again, it might well be that there are people who've signed up to volunteer who have skills that would benefit your group that don't know about you. And that's where we come in along with Ealing and Hounslow. So I've made a few notes on my phone just listening to you to link with you directly, David. So I'll be doing that over the next few days.
Thank you.
Thanks for that.
Thank you. Councillor Cole.
That's excellent, thank you. I mean, colleague there has shared some of the thoughts that I'd had. However, I have a couple of more thoughts to share with you. Firstly, from the presentation, I couldn't ascertain whether you actually have a physical base. You don't?
No, at the moment, we work remotely, so I'm at home trying to organise everybody else. So it is hard work. It would be ideal if we had a base that we could set up so we can get people with MS just to turn up to support each other.
Sorry, Chair. One thing I forgot to mention, one of the things I wrote down was we're also currently reviewing the use of our community assets. And what we've found out doing that review, that we do have space in some of our community venues that aren't being utilised. So gaps at certain times in the week. We might have community groups who are in there 2 or 3 days a week, but not 6 and 7 days a week. And we've currently now built up a picture of where those vacancies, let's call it, are. And again, it was one of the things that I forgot to mention, but we can speak to you about the opportunities. And, the council is committed to not charging in a way that would put you off, let's say.
I understand
We were looking
that.
at that, David, weren't we, a few months ago?
Yeah, I know
Empty space.
Miriam said something about the triangle. That was empty.
Yeah, Miriam mentioned that to me. So I had a meeting with Miriam about her other hat in terms of Food with Love last week. And we're looking at venues for lots of organisations at the moment. So again, I think we need to have a conversation about a few things, David.
Yeah, because I know I've had some emails back talking to some members. They feel it'd be better if they could go face to face rather than over Zoom, because we've got various different age gaps, and the older generation, they don't want to use social media or Zoom. But I must say, our other gap in society is the Asian network. We don't have many Asians on our book. Most of them are English or Polish or Romanian. I think that's our other problem with the councillors. We could engage a bit more with that network.
Okay.
Councillor Cole.
Thank you. Just picking up on that then. The reason I asked about your base is obviously later on this evening we've got a presentation around Hounslow grant funding for voluntary organisations. I'm sure you're aware of this. Very small amounts of money, unfortunately, but I wonder actually whether there is a way, because it's a borough scheme, whether we could actually collectively across the wards do a joint application, because I know it has to be supported by a councillor for these grants to be successful from what I read on here. But I wonder whether we could actually work across the area forums and do a collective application, Joan, and actually do more than £1,000.
It's like as if we were listening to you, and two of the team who actually can tell you the answers to that are in the front, and they can address that when they come up to do their piece.
Fine. So it's just a thought, because obviously we're talking about this tonight, but that might help.
Yeah.
I think some other thoughts that I have that maybe might be able to help is through this grant and through our contacts in the council, we could talk to all our GPs, get information over to GPs, put it onto their websites.
That is the other thing, because GPs, the first thing that happens is you go to the MS nurse and then everything's on her. If it's just an emotional support you want and where to go, there was a lady here, I think it was 2 weeks ago with the other council meeting, and she said, oh, my friend's got MS and she doesn't know where to go. That was the same for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So what I would suggest is that actually through Joan and others, we can get you the mailing list and websites for all the GP practices. And they have a scheme which is run by Ealing and Hounslow CVS now, if I remember correctly, called Social Prescribers. And actually that would be a real conduit for GP practices to make referrals both for individuals who are affected by MS, but also their families and carers. So I think there's a huge network there of paid employees that could act as conduits for you. And the third element that you just raised was about engagement with, I would say, not just the Asian community, but maybe all ethnic minority communities.
Yeah.
So in that respect, I would suggest that actually you make contact with Dissy Radio and some of the key radio stations, which we all use and listen to. They have a community slot, talk-ins, etc. So it's a way of raising awareness. And the other solution, I would say, is going to the faith organisations. Again, we have an interfaith forum. You could go along there and do a presentation. You could have stalls, etc., at the main institutions. It's a tried and tested model. We've been doing it in the voluntary sector for the last 30, 40 years since I've been linked to the voluntary sector. It's very effective because actually you get large congregations of families at key events. Diwali's coming up. It might be an ideal opportunity to raise awareness there.
Amazing.
The other suggestion I was going to give, I have a long history with the voluntary sector and that continues. I would be more than happy to come along and actually offer you my advice on a fundraising strategy and a comms and marketing strategy.
Thank you. That would
There you
be,
go,
that would be
David.
even better.
We're getting somewhere, aren't we?
We're getting there slowly.
Yeah, sure. Michelle, just at the front.
About the Ealing and Hounslow CVS, about volunteering. They also help out with funding as well, so they can look at fundraising links, and also you can talk to me and Kate, so we'll be in touch with you as well about funding schemes. So,
Thank you.
Amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. I've got the lady at the front. Thank you. And that's going to be the last question, and then if everybody could...
As far as the radio session is required, thank you very much for giving time. Yes, I can arrange that for you. And if you have got a Asian speaker, then you can give me your person.
We've got...
If not, I will come to you. You explain everything to me, and I can do the presentation for you.
That's brilliant. We've got various different cultures. We've got Polish. We've got a lady from Dubai, which is Miriam. We've got all sorts of multilingual people, so we're quite good. And I think Harleen's met most of them as well.
Yeah, and I could translate.
Even better.
My Punjabi and my Hindi is really good.
Can I book you now?
Yeah, if you want. If you want, and I'm sure we might get some volunteers from here tonight. So.
But if you want any goodies, please see us out in the foyer later. All we ask for is a small donation just to help us out, because everything that we've got is we don't pay for it. It's all free of charge, and the MS Society, they have to get it all made up free of charge themselves. So it's a big thing to ask.
Can I add to that? Can I add to that? Yeah, I run ladies groups, and I've got about art and craft group. Whatever they create, we sell and we create money. It won't be a huge amount of money, but I can contribute a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, we're not allowed to sell any products.
I will sell.
Yeah, but if we have like a cake bake or something like that, it has to be a donation. It can't say, oh, we put £5 on those. We can't do that.
No, that I will do.
Yeah.
Because we do that anyway. I give it to the other charities. Sorry.
That's fantastic.
Amazing. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, thanks, David. So hopefully there's so many of us here that can touch base and help.
Thank you for having us here.
Okay, so we're going to move on to the next item on the agenda. A hot topic, COVID. So we've got Kelly, Director of Public Health, who's got an update for us on what's going on.
Let me just...
Thank you, Kelly.
Okay. Apologies for just using my laptop. My eyesight isn't particularly good on the screens. But thank you very much, Chair, for allowing me to speak. And it is since January that I last spoke to you. And so I just want to explain that the situation is very different than it was in January, because I have to say that with the worst month of my professional career, it was pretty grim. Not only in the rates of infection that we had, but the hospitalizations that we had in the borough and nationally, and the number of COVID-related deaths that we had. So this is an update of where we're at over the course of the pandemic and over the course of, particularly since January until now. There are some slides that just focus on Cranford and the Heston wards, so that just explains. But it's a brief overview, and happy to take questions afterwards. Okay, so this, I forgot I'm going to have to multitask here. Okay. Right, this is a really busy slide. This is an Institute of Government slide. So essentially, this is up until, from the beginning of the pandemic, which was back in March 2020, till the end of June. And just note the amount, this is government interventions in terms of lockdown 1, lockdown 2, when lockdown 3, when school started and when school stopped, and different regulations that have come into play. And I will say that one of the things that is always a surprise to people is that we don't get a heads up as directors of public health and public health teams in terms of what the government plans are. We find out exactly when the general public finds out. What we then have to do is translate that into national policy. So throughout the whole of the pandemic, when we hear something, particularly those conferences, it's a case of rushing away and suddenly thinking, how is that going to apply in terms of our local policy? So over the course of the pandemic, as we know, there's been a number of lockdowns. They have been absolutely essential in terms of saving lives and protecting the NHS. And January, as I say, was a pretty grim time, but January saw one of the most positive thing that came out of the pandemic, which is the introduction of the vaccination. So when I talk about the rates of infection being high now, they are the highest since January. So January, and I remember the 12th of January, because the 12th of January was my birthday, and the rates were the highest. So they were 1,112 on that day. Okay. That then resulted in a significant number of people in hospital and a significant number of people dying. So over the course of the pandemic, there have been about 588 people that have died within 28 days of testing positive. In that month alone, we had 270. Around about 270 just in that month. We have high rates now. They're currently about 450. But if you look at how that translates to hospital activity, so 450 per 100,000, that's roughly about 1,200 cases in the last 7 days. How that applies to hospitalizations is so different. Okay. just because of the vaccination. So roughly there are about 20 people at Westmid Hospital, and the one thing I would really stress and reinforce from what I'm saying today is the majority of those people are not fully vaccinated. There are some that are fully vaccinated, and that really emphasises the need for people who are invited to go for their booster vaccination to please go. Just because you've been double vaccinated does not mean that that vaccination's protection does not wear off. It does wear off. My concern now is that we will start to see those people in hospital and people who will die will be the people that are not vaccinated. And if there is one message to take away from this, is if you know somebody and you care about somebody, please, please advise them to speak to their GP, speak to us in public health, and happy to start to address some of those concerns that they have about getting vaccination, because more people will die leading up to the winter than we have seen perhaps over the summer, and most of them, not all of them, will be fully vaccinated, will be non-vaccinated. And sorry to start with that kind of bleak message, but I just want to lay exactly what the position is at the moment. So this is the what's called a pandemic curve. And so essentially what you'll see on these bars is the numbers of positive cases. And this is from February until now. So previously we looked back until sort of the beginning of the pandemic, but over the course of about the first 4 months, the only people that ever getting tested were the people that were going into hospital. So it was a bit of a ruse in terms of really understanding what the impact of the pandemic has been. Just off that pandemic curve is January. January is sort of, in terms of the bars, will be double plus what that current blue line is now. So it is, it's significantly different. But what we have seen over the past, probably the past 3 months, is a pretty static picture of rates of infection. They haven't really gone down, and they've started to creep up, and we would expect that over the winter period. And they started to creep up as well with people who have either had COVID in the past or have been fully vaccinated. But as I say, not all. But those people tend not to become hospitalised. So they get symptoms, but they don't tend to get serious symptoms. Really emphasise that. We will, I think, over Sam, who works with me, does all my data. And one of the things that he flags up is when we've got a few days of things sort of starting to sort of drift downwards, the rates of infection drifting downwards. He tells me today it's been 3 days of going down. And sometimes I kind of hold on to that and think, excellent. But then reality hits and you suddenly think, actually, this isn't a trend that's going to last. Okay? So, but as I say, is that rates of infection doesn't always translate to higher admissions because of the vaccination. Okay, next slide. Okay, so you'll see the maps here. There's going to be 4 maps, okay? This is the time series. The first map on your left-hand side is the full course of the pandemic. This is, the darker the areas, the higher the rates of infection for the whole of those 18 to 20 months that we've had. And you will see Heston and Cranford, the darkest area, okay? So the rates of infection, and we call your areas an area of enduring transmission. So that just means that we've had ongoing transmission in Cranford and the Heston wards for the entirety of the COVID pandemic. Okay, we have back sort of in the early stages of the pandemic, particularly when we started testing, it was continuously a dark colour in those areas, which just demonstrates really, really high infection rates. And certainly when we went into surge, which was, we became one of 8 areas where we had started to see quite a rapid increase in cases, what you would have seen, or many will have seen, is a particular focus on Cranford, Heston, and in Feltham North areas where the rates were creeping up very, very quickly. And sort of engagement teams on the ground trying to have conversations with people, trying to sort of get people tested, get people vaccinated to start bringing those rates down. But as you see, the map on the right-hand side is the last 6 months, where you'll start to see a bit of a drift in terms of the spread of infection. And it tends to sort of As the vaccination has kicked in, and also as, you know, and I'll be honest, you know, because we have had enduring infection rates in Cranford and Heston wards, there will be lots of people with antibodies. So that has protected them to a small degree. So gradually, the other areas of the borough have started to catch up. So we've seen higher rates in those particular areas. If we then move on to these two maps, this is the last, these are the last 3 months and the last month. That shows a completely different picture because what we're seeing is not necessarily geographically based. What we're seeing is school-based, particularly the one on the right-hand side. Schools are really problematic at the moment. And I'll just show you the next slide. So if you see that orange line, that shows a rapid increase. That's children aged 10 to 19, so that's secondary school age children. And ever since the start of term, there has been a massive increase. So if you think about our rates of infection across the borough being 450 per 100,000, the children's rate is 1,236 for the 10 to 19. So it's 3 times the size of that. Now we know that children don't tend to get unwell. It's quite rare for them to get unwell. But what happens and what we have seen, so children between 0 to 19 account for more than 50% of our cases. And that's been happening certainly for the last 6 to 8 weeks. But what we are seeing as well is that isolation within homes has not been easy. So while over 50% have been secondary 0 to 19 school-age children, what over 50% as well is household transmission. So if you've got a child at home who is COVID positive, what we're seeing is siblings then test positive, as do the parents. Okay, so that's a really common feature at the moment. And to be honest, you would expect that. Very few people have east wings of the house where they then isolate people who test positive. But it does demonstrate that there has been a policy change and guideline change in the way that we manage children in schools. So previously, last term, we had masks, we had social distancing, we had staggered starts, schools were contact tracing children, and there was a lot of children who were missing education. What the Department for Education and Department of Health have tried to do is balance that up. But unfortunately, we seem to have swung completely the opposite way, and now nobody is contact traced, so it's only those children who test positive who stay at home. Unfortunately, their siblings still go to schools, and sometimes that's a primary school or a secondary school, and then we then create another little pool of positive cases where that sibling is. So we're desperately trying to get ahead of this curve. But this is happening everywhere. This is happening all over the country. And it's really, really problematic at the moment. Now, obviously, the school-based vaccination program of the 12 to 15s is being rolled out. That is actually, it's meant to all be finished by half term, which is the end of this week. But unfortunately, there has been delays, which you'll have seen played out in the media, the challenges of finding people to immunise. There's a whole different set of challenges that have become associated with it, but we will get there. And certainly the 16 to 17-year-olds, over 50% of children who are aged in that group in Hounslow have been vaccinated. So the 12 to 15s will catch up, but we will never get over a significantly high number of children vaccinated because of that difference in opinion as to whether your children need to be vaccinated, and that will be an ongoing challenge. But again, it's not mandated. So the only reason I put this slide in is that these are the 4 wards in Cranford and the 3 Heston wards. They're just demonstrating exactly the same as we're seeing in Hounslow. So you're not outliers at all. And in terms of rates of infection, you're actually a little bit lower than the rest of Hounslow at the moment. But in terms of the impact of school education, it's exactly the same. And as we go along in those sort of age deciles, as these sort of age groups have suddenly become vaccinated, we've just seen a massive drop in the number of people within these sort of 10-year age deciles. So if you looked back Towards January, you'll see over 60s adversely affected, but gradually the over 60s, in fact, everybody over the age of 55, certainly the impact of the people over the age of 55, 80% of people in the borough, that age group and above, have all been vaccinated. The challenge now is to make sure they come forward for their booster jab, and that's not quite happening at the same pace as we would like that to happen, particularly as we're coming up to the winter months. The next one is just to show context. Now, that little red elongated area is Hounslow. So while we look at rates of infection in Hounslow, viruses don't know geographical sort of ward boundaries. They don't know borough boundaries. So if the rates of infection are high in London, we'll have high rates of infection. If they're high to the west of the borough in Berkshire, Surrey, we will get high rates of infection. The thing about Hounslow is it's a really well-connected borough in terms of transport. We've got Heathrow, and we've got the Piccadilly line, and we've got rail stations. Now, great, again, and I remember when I first started 2 years ago, they said, oh, it's a well-connected borough, it's fantastic, easy to get around. That's not always good in a pandemic. In fact, it's quite the opposite. It's not helpful. And obviously, we are going to see, as I say, this increase in rates, because now that people are moving around the airport and coming into the country, and we haven't got any, well, we're starting to see the reduction in people who are needing to quarantine from red-listed countries. People will be moving around a lot more. And obviously, and I don't, the people, as you travel into the borough, yeah, the number of people who are wearing masks, the number of people social distancing, the number of people that are washing their hands on a regular basis is dwindling quite rapidly, because in many areas people think this is all over. Well, unfortunately, it's not. And as Councillor Malik spoke to me before, you know, on the horizon is Delta Plus variant AY 4.2 or something, I can't remember. I don't think it's got a proper name yet, but it's being referred to as Delta Plus. Now, these variants are going to spring up. That's the way viruses work. The flu virus is the classic example of it. It changes all the time. This virus will change, and it will be around for years. Gradually, as we roll out vaccination programs and booster vaccinations, we'll be able to manage it. Moving on. So in terms of our response, and I think this is pretty key, is that I think when we first started our response, and I think if you'd asked me back in January, the amount of activity that we were going to do, I think part of me would have said, yeah, it's going to go on forever. But the other part of me, the hopeful one, was gradually we may be able to step down the amount of activity that we do in response to that. Well, I think, you know, certainly as a council, we have decided and recognised and decided that we're going to need to have this level of a functional response going forward, probably for the next few years. Okay, so we are building up our public health capacity in the team, which I have to say was very, very small. I think people think we have a massive team, but there are roughly about 7 of us, with some honorary members such as Joan, who assists us on and has been doing so for the last 18 months. But this response is an ongoing 7-day-a-week response of national data being translated into local data, and to use local data to be able to find where cases are and to follow people up to make sure they're okay, to make sure that they are following the regulations, to make sure they have access to the finance grant. So it's a combination of national working with local. Sometimes that works really well. Occasionally it doesn't work well at all. We've got testing programs. So the PCR testing program is run by the Department of Health. The rapid testing program is run by the council. The problem is that now people are using lateral flow tests when they're symptomatic, and they are not accurate enough. So we do have people who suddenly say, well, actually, I'm negative on lateral flow, who clearly are unwell, and they tend to not isolate because of that. The guidance is clear. If you're symptomatic, you need a PCR. If you're using it as an overall surveillance tool, use a lateral flow. But if you test positive on a lateral flow, you need to get a PCR. And I think some people think that we're somehow being difficult with that. There is a reason why we have those arrangements. It's to protect the public. The other thing that we do a lot of is outbreak management. So more than one case in a setting is referred to as an outbreak. So we tend to protect our most vulnerable settings, and that always has been care homes. So care homes, we have been really, really good in protecting our care community. Occasionally we get an outbreak, but we tend to manage it. We've had one in the last 18 months, which became a little bit more challenging. And schools, we run a 24/7 phone line service. Well, we run a phone line service for care homes as well, but because of school numbers, that tends to get used quite prolifically. There's lots of work going on engaging with communities, and as I said, we've done a lot of work in Heston and Cranford, particularly because that's an area where transmission has been continual. But actually we've learned so much about the way that we engage that actually in terms of the public health team, we've created an enabling function, which is a communications and engagement team to support that. And the vaccination programme is led by the NHS, but trust us, we are always supporting that because that's our way out of it nationally. Okay, next slide. This is a really busy slide, but what it tells you, and just a brief, is that Hounslow is mid-range. See that top right-hand side? Hounslow is better than most of the rest of London. So uptake of the 12+ age group, and remember the 12 to 15s are only about 16%, so it will bring down that number. But the 12+ is about 66%. And people over the age of 55, all of those age groups are 80% plus uptake of vaccination. That's really good, but there are still 20% who are not vaccinated. In terms of the 4 wards of Cranford and all 3 of the Heston wards, they are between 64 and 67% uptake. So it's good, but it's 12+. Okay. I hasten to add, 12+. So it'll be higher in those more vulnerable age groups. So still a long way to go. There are still lots of people to be vaccinated, either for a booster vaccination or to be vaccinated for the first time. So the more people that we can get vaccinated, definitely before the winter, that's going to be really positive because the NHS is going to need to be protected quite significantly over that time. And then just in terms of the last few slides, is just to say that when we first started, it is fair to say that our communications and our engagement were not particularly good. We were running to catch up. What we have learned, and particularly on our continuous engagement in sort of Cranford and Heston and Feltham area, is we started to learn what works by asking people. So I've now got 2 substantive members of my team who do engagement solely. So street-based conversations and community champions, and you've had 25 working in your area, and they have just been fantastic. In fact, Omar was the council's COVID hero, and he's been absolutely prolific in getting those messages out, being available for pop-up vaccination and testing sites, always about it, and so many other people have. And the schools that you have, particularly secondary schools, so Heston and Cranford, head teachers have been utterly outstanding in their ability to communicate with residents, particularly residents who have children within their schools. So really, really positive. In terms of what we learnt, a whole different way of doing public health, I think it's fair to say. I mean, I've worked in health protection for 20 years. This is all about outbreak management, but outbreak management has always been a rather autocratic approach. We've said, you've done, that's the hope. I think what we have learned over the course of all of this pandemic is that, and I think the police officer mentioned it, about trusting, about creating trust, about building confidence with communities, because it starts with the vaccination, but you could apply that to almost any other type of healthcare, particularly cancer screening, all those kind of things that have created quite a gap in health inequalities amongst certain communities. So there's a lot that we need to take away and apply elsewhere. And finally, going forward, we're going to need to keep an eye on this for years to come. We're going to need to horizon scan for increased rates of infection because as new variants emerge, so will the rates of infection. And at some point there will be variants that we will need to be really, really concerned about and variants that we just need to keep an eye on. At the moment, all the variants that we currently have circulating are sensitive to the vaccination. So the vaccination will work, but at some point there will be a variant that crops up where we're going to have to change the makeup of the vaccine. And that's the benefit of the way that the vaccines have been developed, because they, like the flu vaccine, they can be tweaked. So really important to get vaccinated. Also really important is to recognise that as we come into winter, flu vaccinations are also really important, because flu fills up hospitals as well. And likewise, that kind of ability to self-care, particularly for people with long-term conditions, get to access their GP where possible at the earliest opportunity, because winter comes with pressures on the NHS, but this winter is going to be a little bit of a challenge. So what we're trying to do is create that message, get winter ready, and let's try and mitigate some of those avoidable risks. Thank you.
Wow. Oh my God, that was a lot of information.
Sorry, I do talk a
No,
lot.
no, it's fine. Why are you struggling with people having the booster after the first and second dose?
I think if I was
Is it
being...
because they've had the first and second and people are still getting it?
Yes. And I think some of the things that we've said in the past, so the sort of national statements about getting vaccinated, I think nobody ever mentioned a booster right from the outset. I think everybody thought this was going to be the panacea. Get your first vaccine, then get your second one, and the deal's done. Yeah, unfortunately, immunology doesn't match that. So the messages that came out didn't really quite translate, because it also was, if you get vaccinated, you won't get COVID. That's not the case. What it does do is it protects you from really serious infection, but you do need to keep the antibodies level higher. And as a woman myself who's getting a bit older, our immune systems become a bit rubbish. And actually, when we're young, our immune systems are really great. They protect us, but as we get a bit older, our immune systems start to let us down a little bit. So that's why getting a booster vaccination, particularly if you're invited for one, particularly those people over the age of 50, like me, is essential.
You're not 50, are you?
I'm well over 50.
Councillor Malik.
You know, perfect.
Chair, the Kamaljit was before me.
It doesn't matter, but yeah, fine. Kelly, thank you. I think that was very comprehensive, probably a lot of information to comprehend and translate, but some of us are working on it day to day like you, so it's easier. Yes. Others aren't. So my question to you is, what you didn't share in your presentation was hesitancy and what our approach is in the sense of engagement and comms to our community. So that's my first question. Yeah. And my second question linked to hesitancy for you is, do we have any profile data of what age groups we're getting hesitancy and declines from, and which communities, in order to then think about what our actions are and strategies are to try to combat some of those challenges?
Yes, so hesitancy has existed. It's something that we've been quite attuned to rather right from the outset. And I think that the hesitancy has come in different forms. It's come on the basis of the vaccination's been developed rather quickly, there must be something wrong with it. The sort of old issues of, it affects your fertility and it affects your genetic material. The amount of information is out there that disputes all of that. And I suppose on the back of that, the slowness of the NHS to put out comms allowed the anti-vaxxers and the people that have miscommunicated the wrong information to be quite prolific. And once it's out there, it's out there. So if there is any doubt, then people will attach their issue to that because it's there first. In terms of how we manage that, there's been a lot of work that's been going on in Northwest London, particularly led by Imperial College, about, well, what do we do about that, particularly in certain communities. And one of the things that came out of that particular piece of work, which lasted over 10 weeks, was to think about where your vaccine hesitant groups are. And also there was quite a solid piece of evidence that suggested if you have a community group that is particularly small, that's where your hesitancy is likely to be greatest. Now, if we look over the data of who's been in hospital and unfortunately who's died, there has been a disproportionate amount of people from South Asian communities and particularly our Black African communities and our Black Caribbean communities. So what we have done is targeted those communities, and certainly we've had focus groups where we've asked what would make you change your mind. And pretty much beyond most things is a one-to-one conversation, particularly with a GP. So what we've asked GPs to do is to contact people from their community groups, particularly their older ones, and sort of working their way down in terms of their age profile, and have those conversations on a one-to-one basis. We have found that that has worked to a degree. There is still quite significant hesitancy. A lot of people say they want to wait. We want to wait to see what happens. Well, I'm not sure what they're waiting for now, because quite frankly, it is fair to say that there are people in hospital who wish that they hadn't waited. The age groups that most are a concern are the 20 to 29s. And I would say that we'll probably not get quite a high uptake on the 12 to 15s. And the 12 to 15s is to protect that group and to protect ongoing transmission. But the 20 to 29s, particularly an age group where they are unlikely to experience really, significant symptoms and become seriously unwell, or that's the perception. But what we are seeing is because they are a group that's not vaccinated, they are starting to emerge in those small numbers who are hospitalised. Not on a big scale, but they are certainly emerging. And I will say that those people in hospital are more likely to be from Black communities in South Asian, Black African, Black Caribbean, and they're more likely to be from South Asian communities, and those risk factors of diabetes and obesity are still very obvious.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Kamarjit has asked what I wanted to ask, but in addition to that, I'm particularly interested about influx of Heathrow Airport. What impact?
Sorry, Councillor, I can't hear you.
Influx of passenger which are increasing day by day at Heathrow Airport.
Yes.
Since we have many countries removed from red list.
Yeah.
And the Cranford is by the boundary of Heathrow Airport, and
Yes.
there is significant impact of increasing number of passengers coming into the country on Cranford. What prevention, what we are doing about it, number one. And secondly, I know the number of schools which Cranford has, but we can manage and monitor, and you have data. But one particular college, which is mostly international student, which is Cranford College Heathrow at Bath Road, we never heard of any data or information about that. Do you have any information about that particular college at all?
Actually, Cranford College as in
Cranford
the secondary school?
It is. It's called private college.
Okay. That hasn't emerged. There has been other places that have emerged, and if it's linked to cases, it will come up in our data, because you can map back where these people are. But that hasn't emerged as an area of significant risk. Cranford, though. There are parts of Cranford where we have done lots of work, and parts of the hospitality sector particularly, where we have seen links between residents who live particularly in Cranford and Heston, and links with the hospitality sector, particularly hotels. We have done, so Graham, who is our complex case officer, and Vicky Wallace, who's enforcement, has done a huge amount of work with each of those hotels, and supporting staff, making sure that they are as COVID secure as they possibly can be. And where we have seen people who are COVID positive in some of those hotels, I'm not talking about the managed quarantine hotels, I'm talking about people who are quarantined under these sort of local quarantining packages that some hotels have offered. We are constantly, or on a regular basis, overseeing those hotels, making sure that standards are maintained. But remember, we see all of this data. So every time that we have concerns with the data or we see an emerging risk, we can easily access those places, because under COVID rules, we're allowed to go into places that perhaps we weren't previously allowed to. But apart from that, I mean, in terms of the Heathrow links, obviously, as I said previously, the ability for people to move around now is greater than it has been for 20 months. We will see increased cases as a result of that, particularly in relation to there's very limited testing, people are going on holiday. The world is a very small place, as we've learned from, or as we didn't learn from SARS and various other, sort of epidemics and pandemics that we've had previously.
Thank you, Jess. Sorry, one thing.
Yeah.
Do you have any data for people, which age group, how many are not having booster within the Cranford?
Yes.
That will be helpful, and how can we
Yes.
assist?
I'm happy to share that data. Obviously can't share
That's fine.
individual
That's
level
fine.
data, but actually the more that you can put your voices out into the community,
Mhm.
the more that you have those conversations with people who are eligible for booster vaccinations, and more importantly, those people who haven't had a vaccination at all, the more that you can reinforce those messages, the more that we can protect all of our communities, particularly those people who are vulnerable by age or long-term condition.
Thank you, Kelly. Thanks.
Councillor Lal and then Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. Kelly, that was a very fast presentation. As Councillor Kaur said, it's very comprehensive. But I picked up, I may be wrong, but I picked up on one of the slides, and we made reference to the 12 to 19-year-olds. Yeah. And I could tell from the graphs that in Heston Central and Cranford, in that age group, there seemed to be a decline. But in Heston West and Heston East, it was continuing to go up, and whether you guys have picked it up. And although I'm concerned for the whole of the borough, this is the Heston Cranford Area Forum, so I'm particularly concerned about Heston West and Heston East as to why ours are still going up, whereas two of our wards are going down. The next one is to do with masks. I mean, do we again need to wait for central government to tell us what to do, or can we as a borough mandate wearing masks in public? The other question is, third question, in terms of a reference to hard-to-reach communities, you mentioned Black and African minority and Caribbean communities, but then you say South Asian, which is really like all-encompassing, right? Yeah. So you got Indians, Sri Lankans, Pakistanis, Bangladeshi, etc. Could you elaborate any particular community within the South Asian community which is having problems? Yep. And the last one is something to do with the booster. What's the notification process of the booster campaign?
Yeah, okay. So let's start with the ones that I can remember. You might have to remind me. We can't mandate masks, unfortunately. Under Plan B of the Autumn-Winter Plan, the government says that they can designate certain places to be mandated, well, mandated as it was previously for mask wearing. They haven't identified where those places are, although I do know that the football club will be one of those mandated because the Premier League have been in touch. I haven't been told where those other places are. Okay.
So to be absolutely clear, the council has no...
No, okay. No. And to be honest, if that were the case, I would be encouraging it, but not necessarily. And I would really hasten to add that mask wearing is not a panacea. No. But what it does do is reminds people that we have a pandemic, and it reminds people to do all those other things that we want them to do, like hand washing, like social distancing, and just to remember that there are people still at risk. In terms of vaccination groups, I'm not sure, in terms of you think you might have read the graph a little bit wrong in terms of uptake. Because I don't think the uptake's not going down, it will just increase over time. It's an aggregated increase. So what have we got? We've got...
Last month, 12 to 19-year-olds.
Oh, 12 to 19-year-olds. No, I can't see that. No, it's not on, that's not here. I mean, the 12 to 15s will go up because only, I think in Cranford, only Cranford's community college has been done, as in the secondary school. I think Heston's been done as well, but remember, there are lots of children who are currently off with COVID and they have to wait 28 days. So the uptake has been roughly about 45 to 50% in those areas. But the school vaccination teams will go back and redo those children that have got consent to actually have vaccination after 28 days. In terms of ethnicity, looking at the slide, which doesn't go, these are just subgroups that the NHS produce. So our lowest rates are within Black Caribbean communities, so that's 34%. Gypsy and Irish traveller communities, that's 38%. Our Arab community is 41%. In terms of South Asian communities, we're looking at Pakistani communities, 66%. Indian is 75 and Bangladeshi is 77. So it's part and parcel, but you're quite right to flag that, yeah, and South Asian is a bit of a, I had sort of mixed it all together as a homogenous community. Yeah, yeah. Right. So it's pretty good, actually, the uptake. And the uptake overall in Heston and Cranford is good because, remember, we're looking at 12 plus, and the 12 to 15 is what's dragging it down because it's only roughly about 16% at the moment because of the rollout.
Councillor Ram.
Booster notification process.
Boost. So that should come from your GP, and it comes 6 months after your second vaccination. Okay. So I was lucky enough to have one of the first vaccinations. So I've had mine, and it was really, really simple. Just a message from your GP, and you go online, you book it, and I think I got mine the following day. And it's really, really slick because the processes are much better than they were when it was initially rolled out.
Chair, so with that process, I mean, it worked the first time round. So are we saying this time people are not turning up?
Yeah, and I think this goes back to making sure that the communication process is. So we're just putting together a business case for quite a significant piece of work in terms of going back and doing that engagement work, which we learned from that surge process. What we have found is that the NHS has been quite slow again, which is why the council has stepped in to do this communications work. So Sterling in my team with the communications team from the council are absolutely leading on communications for the booster dose, just because there was a gap.
Councillor Ram.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Kelly, for your presentation. I wanted to touch base on the booster, the downfall of the booster when it was brought out, because you said nationally it was not something that was mentioned.
Yeah.
So I just want to make clear, is the booster now something that is going to be a regular thing, like every year, that is going to be bought in, because you said it's going to be around for years,
yes.
COVID and other variants. So, and will that booster cover these other variants, or does that mean that one booster will cover one thing and then another booster will cover another thing as a yearly top-up?
Yeah, so don't hold me to account for this if it changes, but I can't see any reason why we wouldn't be having a booster vaccination periodically moving forward. So what viruses do is that what's called, and if there's any immunologists, I apologise because I'm no immunologist, they do what's called shift and drift. So it's a degree to which they change. They're like chameleons. They'll change and adapt to their environment because essentially sort of making sure that they proliferate is their means, is what they do, which is why every year we change the flu vaccination. And sometimes the flu vaccination works and sometimes it doesn't because it's done like this. What's likely to be the circulating sort of infection or the circulating strains of flu? Then they manufacture the flu vaccination. Sometimes it hits the target, sometimes it half hits the target, and sometimes it's particularly dismal. But what we see with the COVID is that we are constantly monitoring for new variants, constantly. So actually, these messenger RNA vaccinations, which is the Pfizer and the AstraZeneca vaccinations, are easy to change and adapt according to the variants that are moving around. But as I will really emphasise, is that the current vaccination is able to tackle the current variants, including the Delta Plus variant that's emerging. At some point in the future, there will be a quite a shift in in variants. It will change, but at the moment, we've just got to keep on top of this because actually, by having lots of people vaccinated, we reduce the risk of variants emerging. Now, as I said, the world is a very small place. And globalization, the ability to cross the world within 24 hours means that the rest of the world have to catch up as well. So regardless of what we do, we can protect our own communities, but actually we still have a moral imperative as well to protect developing countries who haven't got a vaccination. Because with Heathrow on our doorstep and flights that are in and out of there all over the world, as I say, it will always carry a risk.
Just a really quick one, Chair. I'm conscious I have taken the floor quite a lot. Kelly, can you just clarify the booster programme? At the moment, it's 50 pluses.
Yes.
Will it get rolled out to the other age groups as all of those over the 50 plus get through it? Or is it just going to be targeted for the 50 pluses?
Well, at the moment, we're told it's just the 50 pluses. Yeah. And it goes back to, as we get older, our immune systems are whereas that's a terrible word, isn't it? Are not quite as effective as they were when we were younger, which is why we're only giving one dose to the 12 to 15s. That will be enough to maintain antibody levels for quite a period of time. But yeah, the older you get, the more your systems slightly fail you.
Amazing. Any questions from the floor? Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to, it's been touched on already, but given the fact that Hounslow is still just wanted to ask firstly, given the fact that Hounslow Borough is still regarded, as I understand it, as one of the hotspots for the pandemic, I wanted to get some more information in terms of what is being done borough-wide to tackle this. It's already been touched on by various councillors, but I wanted to press further in terms of specific strategies around ethnic minorities, and I think it's already been touched on in terms of what specific strategies are being coming up with, are being sort of put together to deal with the Afro-Caribbean community, given the statistics that you've already flagged up in terms of the Asian community. But also what strategies are being dealt with in schools, because as a father, I'm extremely concerned of the increase in the pandemic in schools. I mean, I know, sort of children in my own daughter's school where they are now sort of like being told to self-isolate because of the increase in the virus. One of the criticisms I would make is that having flu jabs and booster jabs at the same time, is that better? Okay. At the same time is problematic, particularly if you have an adverse reaction to the booster jab, as I did. One of the main criticisms, we've talked about Heathrow Airport, but no one's mentioned TfL. I travel to bus by work every day, and the number of people who don't wear masks is shocking, despite the fact that TfL have made it abundantly clear that wearing masks is compulsory. So I'm just wondering what strategies are being done at local level to combat that, and what representations have been made to the Mayor and to TfL about this. Finally, given the fact that you have said that this pandemic is going to be a few years to come, what lobbying has been done by the council and yourselves, particularly to get additional funding from both DCLG and the Department of Health?
Okay. Very quickly, we're not a hotspot. We're not a hotspot. That's the map of the southeast. If we're a hotspot, there are a hell of a lot of hotspots. And if you look at the northwest and the northeast and the Midlands, London is the region with the lowest rates of infection. We just have high rates in comparison to a number of other areas in London. Reason for that is that we've got a lot of people who are essential workers who are moving around the borough, and those more affluent areas, people are happily working from home. Work from home, safe. If you're doing a essential care job, we need you out there, and you are more likely to be exposed. In terms of children, you're quite right. I have real concerns about the number of cases that we've got in schools. I have been speaking to the unions, the school unions today, with Stephen Forbes, who's the Director of Children's Services, and the Chief Medical Officer has spoken about the fact that he is speaking to the DFE, Department for Education, about revising the guidelines and re-looking at the guidelines. I will just emphasise that children don't tend to get unwell, but we do have adults that work in schools as well, and some of them have chosen not to be vaccinated. In terms of ethnic minority groups, We have, as I say, we have engaged a number of officers who are from who are multilingual. We've also had Cabinet Office help us to start sort of thinking about different strategies for engagement. And there's a gold meeting, which is a senior corporate leadership team. And what we are doing over the next 6 months is replicating on a mini level the surge activity that we were doing back in May and June time, so that we carry this over, not just for COVID, but for flu and for all of the winter pressures in terms of protecting the NHS, because we do not want the NHS under any pressure if we can avoid it. So that's really, really clear. In terms of TfL, that is, unfortunately, that has been an ongoing problem for us. We know that people have chosen not to wear masks. We have made many representations as a council to TfL in terms of how they're going to enforce it. But what we are seeing on public transport now is what we are seeing in wider society, is that they think it's all over. And unfortunately, people only change their habits when something adverse happens to them. And, you know, did I cover all of that? Oh, and the jabs. No, the jabs, absolutely fundamentally, there is usually no reason why you can't jab. I mean, children, particularly child immunisations, you do 2 jabs in any one visit. The whole idea of doing jabs at the same time is twofold. One is that people are unlikely to come back, and we see that quite regularly. So if you jab them at the same time, it is safe to do, but unfortunately you've had an adverse reaction to one which wasn't, you know, which is unfortunate. But the idea is on a population health level, if you can vaccinate people safely at the same time, you get through people, you protect people quicker, and it's less likely, well, it reduces the risk that they won't come back. And we need those jabs done, flu and COVID booster vaccinations, as soon as possible. Did I cover everything?
It's amazing.
You didn't cover the question about additional funding from the central government. DCLG and Department of Health.
Yeah, we got funding until the 23rd of March. The new Contain strategy says that we have to use our existing funding. And I think it's fair to say that we have had quite a lot of funding. And I think, you know, but certainly after that, we have to spend that money up until the end of March. They have not said what we will be doing after March. However, the council have made plans, as I said, to boost up the vaccine, maintain the response programme by allowing us to increase the capacity in the public health team. So we do that, and at the same time do all the other things that public health needs to do, all the other priorities that we have sort of played around with because we haven't had the capacity to deal with at the scale we need to. So by doubling the public health team, which is what we're doing at the moment, we can manage both.
Amazing, thank you. Kelly, thank you for that detailed update. Thank you very much. We're going to move on now. And we've got a Heston Action Group. And the chocolates outside are to celebrate your award that you got. So I'll let you guys tell us about it. But a round of applause.
Clean, given that the COVID champion's just been sitting on the table, you know. Just make things look.
First, tell everybody about the award, yeah?
No, can you press the microphone?
No, I can shout. Thank you for inviting us tonight. By way of introduction, my name is Navdeep Diol, and I'm here with Jasmine Diol. We're both committee members of Heston Action Group, otherwise known as Hag for short. And we come here representing the 10 committee members we have, but also all of our other Hag members and Haglets, the children members of Hag, and also our sort of very diverse and wide community in Heston that we hope to represent through this presentation and through our work. Before I start, I just wanted to say a big thank you to Kelly for her presentation, but also for the hard work of London Borough of Hounslow, the NHS, and all of the key workers of keeping us as safe as possible through the pandemic. It's been a tremendous effort all round, and very proud of all the hard work that's been done. As a community group that's quite well established, not just in Heston but right across the borough, we stand very united with you guys to spread the message. So anything that needs to get retweeted or shared on Instagram or Facebook, we will do that to get messages out, not just about our aims, but also about key community messages such as public health. So without further ado, I just wanted to perhaps just remind everyone of our mission statement, which is up there, which is uniting to clean and green. And those are very environmental themes, and that's been the very bedrock of our organisation from the first day when we got together to clean out St Leonard's cemetery with all the rubbish and waste that was in there. But we've grown over the last 3 years, and the purpose of today's session is to tell you what we've been up to over the last 3 years. Hopefully you will receive a copy of the Hag Hike, which is our newsletter twice a year. You'll see in a bit more detail what we do, but to give you a bit of a summary of what we've been up to, and also what vision we have for the next year in terms of what we'd like to try and achieve. And the backdrop really is the declaration that we have a climate crisis, and that's a declaration that's been made by the London Borough of Hounslow. I'm sure it's endorsed by all of you here today and those who are attending. And that, in the context of COP26, gives us a sense of urgency and priority. So our work isn't done simply because we do enjoy doing it and we like doing it, we like being part of a group, but we also have a sense of urgency over what needs doing, and that really is the key for us. So we've achieved a lot in the last 3 years, but we want to try and accelerate as we go further. So if we move to our first slide, perhaps, I'm just going to cover off one aspect of the work we do. I mean, obviously, litter picking is one of our key activities, as you'll see from the slide, and that's a joint, the picture on the left is a joint project we did with Osterley and White Green Community Association to clean up the north end of Heston. But it's not the only thing we do. It's obviously our main activity, but we do other things. And one of the key activities we do, and if we could just have the next slide, please, is dealing with policy and consultation. And that's been very important because we're not going to deliver change by just picking up litter and reporting it. It will just be an endless task which we'll never get through. We're not going to solve the world's problems by just planting the odd tree or bush. We need change at a much more fundamental level. And we do that through policy and consultation. We've done a lot of good work with the London Borough of Hounslow. Initially, we were part of the Cleaner and Greener consultation, and we produced the Hag report, which I think you've all seen as well, which sets out 6 or 7 key objectives for Hounslow to follow to clean and green the borough, most of which have been adopted in the Cleaner, Greener strategy. We've done a lot of work with Hounslow Highways to reinvent the cleaning routines across Heston, to improve it and to make it a bit more focused. You'll see grip bins all over Heston now. Those were first seen in Heston due to the work that we did with Hounslow Highways and the London Borough of Hounslow to provide recycling facilities and waste facilities for flats above shops. And for those of you who use Hounslow West Station, you'll see that Widdermere Court and Springwell Court now no longer have huge mounds of waste outside, because we've been campaigning for some time to give those flats adequate facilities to dispose of waste and recycle. But perhaps one of our key achievements was to get Heston, and if we could just have the next slide, please, Heston declared as part of the cumulative impact area. The cumulative impact area, for those who don't know, is the area where the council takes a bit more of a focus towards licensing of off licenses and takeaways because of the impact it has on the community. And Heston was just outside of that CIP, just to the north of it. Obviously we have a band of merry litter pickers who go out, pick litter up on almost a daily basis and take pictures and share it on social media. That led to some work we did with the London Borough of Hounslow and Make Associates, and where we produced documentary evidence of the waste problem in Heston. And we were described in some detail in the report as the Hag work demonstrating the negative impact that the density of businesses selling alcohol and takeaways on our community was having. In particular, we had identified, and it's recorded, 42 active alcohol hotspots. The Make Associates report describes Heston as having very severe problems, and some of the most serious seen in London. Street drinking was described as endemic, along with urination, litter, alcohol-related litter, and drug paraphernalia in most streets of Heston. That led to a concern about crime and disorder, public safety, prevention of nuisance, and protecting children from this, because many of our local schools are very close to those establishments that have alcohol and takeaway facilities. And you'll see from some of the schools in Heston, just outside them, as the school kids leave, there are huge piles of lager cans on an almost weekly basis, and in some cases, huge piles of drug paraphernalia on an almost daily basis. So one of the bits of work we did quite early on was to get Heston included, and we were delighted to be able to have that included now in the cumulative impact area. So any new licenses for off licenses and takeaways do have to go through extra rigour and checks. I'll hand over to Jasmine to talk about some of the other work we do.
Okay. The next slide, please.
Sorry, and it's probably the next one, isn't it? So,
yeah. The things that Hag have recognised, that in addition to the climate emergency, we also recognise that Heston is actually a historical and very historical and beautiful part of the borough, and we would like to keep it so and improve it. So the previous slide, actually, if you could just take us back to that. That was about using the London plan and other plans that help us to protect the conservation area within Heston, because we can see that the conservation area within Heston has reduced significantly over the years, and it's actually being deteriorated at an alarming rate with the number of bills that are taking place in the area, not in line with keeping with the architecture or the character of the area. So we are looking to work on policies and work with planning to try and improve that and make sure that we don't end up losing Heston as as a conservation area effectively, and and degrading it. In terms of funding, if you could go to the next slide, we have established some funding for a couple of projects. So the first one, if you could go to the next slide, please, is securing £53,000 for doing up the Heston War Memorial, and that includes restoration, replanting the area. If any of you have visited the memorial, you can see it's really overgrown and it needs some landscaping done. It's a very important monument within the area. It's a prominent monument, and it needs to be seen. And at the moment, you can drive through Heston Village and not even notice that it's there. So what we're looking to do is get it lit up properly and have appropriate signage, and really make it a focal point within Heston. As part of that. As part of keeping it as a conservation area, as part of beautifying and respecting the place that we live in. So that's a project that's underway. Another project, if you could move to the next slide, please, is the one for our new community garden at Sutton Playing Fields. So this was talked about in previous forums. Sutton Playing Fields is a large area within within the residential sort of section of Heston, and we have secured some funding for it to create this garden, and work has already begun. It's been fenced off. We've had paving put down, and we've already started working on digging trenches for hedging and looking at bringing planters in there, and we've got planting plan. We've planted an orchard within the community garden. This is really important to bring the community together, because one of the things that we recognise, as well as the first project to do with the War Memorial was about beautification and respect of the history of Heston, but this one is about bringing diverse communities together so we can learn off them, so we can educate our neighbours, on growing and different techniques, and we can also bring in ideas of cleaning and greening into that community garden. So that's something that we're really excited about, and we have a number of weekends set up over up until December. Every weekend we're going to be at the community garden doing some work on it before the winter sets in, and then back again in the spring. So we would really appreciate if people would attend those events. We've publicised them on social media, and we'd love support from our councillors as well to bring people into that community garden, because we need volunteers. We need people to make it their community garden. Next slide, please. Okay, so community engagement is really key. We want to involve everyone. We want to make the community stronger. We want to build connections through the communities. We've got that real strength within Heston because we have so many diverse communities, and including old, young. We want to bring in people of different cultures and religions. So we want to. So we can do that at the moment through a number of different ways, and we are doing this. So next slide, please. We are doing this through. Sorry, next slide. Through litter picks, as you know, we do attend. We run scheduled litter picks, but we also encourage people in Heston to own a litter picker, to go and litter pick their own street. So we have a network of people just looking after their own street, and I think through that community action, we could make Heston a really, really nice place to live if a few people just took responsibility for their own street.
Get a T-shirt too.
We're running play streets as well, which is the next slide. So this is really like a street party, and this is really good because we've had a number of these, and it brings out those people who have been stuck in their homes, maybe through being disabled or not being able to make it too far out of their street. So, and old people. So we've actually managed to engage a lot of the community through a play street, which is really amazing, and we'd love councillor support on that as well. And we'd love the community to run a play street on their street as well. It's a really good way of bringing the community together, but also not just to have a party, but also to inform people that they don't have to live on a street that's got 5 mattresses lying there for a month. They can report it. They can go and litter pick their street if they want to. It empowers people, and that's what we want to do. The next thing that we'd like to talk about is a Hag Hike. So this is about getting the community out to discover what Heston is. So right on the edge of Heston, we've got all the metropolitan open land between St Leonard's Church and Osterley, and a lot of people don't know about that land. They don't really go and explore that area. So we would like to get people out and about, appreciating the things that are on their doorstep, part of that whole beautification of Heston, and making it a place that people want to live and socialise in. And then finally, we've got tree planting and greening. which is an activity we have done, we've been engaged in a lot. We've planted a number of forests, mini forests in Sutton playing fields. We've identified streets that need trees, particularly streets that are named after trees. So we've got, we are identifying trees that are dead, that have been planted that need replacing. We are identifying trees that have recently been planted, which will probably die if they're not watered. So we're trying to create we have created a tree champion scheme where people can just look after a tree, in their street if it's newly been planted. We need to get this message across to the wider community. And finally, if you could move to the next slide, please. So we have been trying to get the message out through social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, but we have released the Hag Holler, which is a newsletter, because we are aware that not everybody is on social media, and it's kind of nice to have a biannual kind of publication that summarises what Hag do. And I think that one thing that we would like to take away from this meeting is for everybody to promote that Hag Holler, because it really, really does summarise and crystallise what we are doing in the community and what we need from the community to help us improve your community. So on that note, I think I will leave it to Nav. I have just two final points. We did win an award, Harleen. Thank you for your congratulations. It was a Green Initiative Award given to us by One Hounslow, and we have also had recognition from the Queen as well. So we are really pleased about that, and we hope you are.
Thank you.
And then I'll pass on to.
So I've just got just a couple more points to make. One is engagement. So if I could just go to the next slide, it'll wrap up very shortly soon. So wider engagement, and just the next one as well, please. Sorry, I've got all these headings in. So obviously, one of the key aspects of our DNA from the very outset is we didn't want to become a residents group in Heston. So our first litter pick was in Brentford. Subsequently, we've done litter picks in 8 London boroughs. We have frequently been out in Cranford with the Cranford Action Group. We do stuff with Abundance London there, who are based in Chiswick, Cultivate London, who are based in Hounslow. The National Trust, we've been working with them on the Blossom Tree project. And we recently submitted a bid with Hounslow to re-London, which was unfortunately unsuccessful, for some funding for additional activities within Heston. We are very close to the London National Park City, and most of you will know that's run by the Mayor's Department. We have a ranger of London National Park City within our Hag community, and we were also invited by Sadiq Khan to speak at the launch of London National Park City to the mayors of various London cities, which we did back in 2018. So we're very proud of our collaboration with the other groups, and thank you, David, for your presentation earlier on, and we're more than happy to collaborate with your group as well, irrespective of what you do. Then finally, just to wrap up, and there's a few slides, but I'll rattle through them, and this is perhaps just for follow-up thinking. Just move forward, please. If you could just go a bit more, please. Thanks. What we've done is that we've identified for 2022 some key initiatives that we would like to focus on, and I'm not going to go through them in detail, but I just wanted to call them out. So the first one is, and this is perhaps going to the question that you ask us, which is how can you help us? So these are key initiatives that we're working on that we think you could have a really positive and influential impact on. So one is, as Jasmine pointed out, we are trying to get more street trees out, sometimes trees in gardens. We've identified a number of roads in Heston that have no trees, have lost all of their trees. And we've got a petition, I think, that came to you a couple of years ago from the residents of Summerhouse Avenue. We have got a tree map, any support you can give us to get Hounslow Highways and the London Borough of Hounslow to get trees in key spaces, so our streets can look better, would be much appreciated. The next slide is about depaving, and this is key in the context of the climate crisis, and this is about taking areas of over-paving and seeing whether or not we can return them to some natural state. It might just be a small patch, it might be a large patch, it may be a raised bed, it may be having discussions with planning about the just very frequent planning applications that are made by individuals to turn their front gardens into full triple driveways with a 3 crossover in the process, about speaking to planning and engaging with planning about how do we encourage residents to keep some greenery in their garden, to incentivise them not to turn their gardens into a car park. What can we do together on that front? Because we are seeing that as a real problem within the community at the moment. Verges is another one. The green Verges of Heston, so that's the next slide. The green Verges of Heston, as you can see, are completely destroyed by parking, by people driving over them, by irresponsible road use. They have not been repaired. They get to this state and then Hounslow Highways will come along and tarmac them because it's easier, and we lose huge amounts of green space for water to be run off and just green space for us to plant trees and other matters. What we've identified, I think, to some of you, some of the roads that are identified there, where we could do with some casework influencing from your perspective to get the Verges back and then to come up with plans to protect them. And then very finally, meetings. So we go to lots of, litter fly tipping, sorry, that's the penultimate one. Litter fly tipping, we are really pushing now for, sorry, if you can go back to litter fly tipping, thanks. We're really pushing for weekend litter picking on the Heston shop parades, because that is the one thing that's missing at the moment. So we're trying to encourage Hounslow Highways to bring over at least once on a Saturday, once on a Sunday, to different shop parades, litter pickers, because Heston is very populated, it's very busy, it's got 42 alcohol hotspots. We need those cleaning staff over in Heston, even if it's just for a few hours every weekend. Finally, meetings. We go to a lot of meetings with Hounslow Council. We have a very good arrangement with many of the officers. Clearly, we are going to be more influential at achieving change, at delivering change, and engaging with the council if we have your support. So if you can come to meetings with us, if we copy you into emails, maybe push the agenda with the officers. If we can achieve more together, we should absolutely try for that, because the climate crisis is something that is only going to get worse, and I think we all need to pull together, work collaboratively to try and, whether it's different groups across the borough, whether it's councillors and those groups, we need to pull together to do what we can for our environment. So that's it from us. Sorry, Harleen, if I've run over a bit.
Thank you. No, that's fine. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming this evening. Okay. Did you want to say something?
I just want to say thank you to the Heston Action Group. I have seen them very many times, not once or twice, often on Great West Road picking up litter, and I have briefly joined them to pick 2 or 3 pieces too. But they're an incredible group, and I actually promoted you on Facebook as well. Yeah. Thank you.
Amazing. Thank you. We need more of you. Mr. Shahid Manik, he's one of my residents. He lives on Rembury Road. Yeah. Thank you. Amazing, guys.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to... Sorry, David, did you want to say something?
Sorry, as well as being in charge of the MS Society, I'm also on the board for Heston West Big Local, and Heston Action Group have been with us doing litter picks as well around our areas, and I totally agree with where they're coming from. We've got takeaway venues by, there isn't enough dustbins as well. It's a lack of funding as well, I think, and trying to educate people to use the bins.
Amazing. Thank you, guys. We're just going to rejig the agenda a bit. I'm going to get Cranford Action Group in quickly. Sorry, guys. Thank you. I can't have Heston and not have Cranford. Sure.
Yeah.
Okay, we're ready? Thanks.
Yeah, as soon as that goes up. I think that might be a bit of overdosing on the cleaning, the cleaning and the cleaning. So you lot are all going to shoot out that door. Please don't. We've got a lot to show you. The Cranford Action Group, what we are local residents that have united over having seen the litter and fly tip that has blighted our green spaces and our street spaces. Thanks, sorry. Could you not hear me before? So, like I say, we've united for a common purpose, and we advocate a change. We advocate a change in through empowering our community, actively intervening, and also to get the authorities much more involved with our mission. And so myself, I'm Umi. This is Gurpreet, and we've got Camel Deep, and then we will represent Cranford Action Group. Right, got you. So what I would like to do is begin with where we started. And this is pre-pandemic, and we started with Park Lane. Park Lane, if a lot of us do know this, this is a very rural landscape, and we have the majestic River Crane running through it. But sadly, over the years, this has been degraded through years of fly tipping and widespread littering. Despite our pressure towards the local council to try and rescue it, clearly wasn't going to happen, and enough was enough. And we galvanised the local community, we galvanised the people from the local Heathrow Jamia Masjid, worked with Hounslow Highways, and we cleared the tons of waste that had accumulated down there. And just to show you some of the community that were involved in that initiative. And what remains is that we have made substantial progress with Park Lane. It remains like this, and it remains clean because we keep an eye on it, and it is up to the community to do that, working with the local authority to pursue it. But we've also managed to secure interim CCTV for Park Lane because the riverside is very important to us. We've managed to place several bold and clear signage to prevent the degradation of Park Lane as well. And having harnessed the local community, having realised the potential that the local community have on the local environment, we just went further. And so many of us will know that Cranford Bridge, significant part of Cranford, that has been bollarded, boarded up, close to the local community, and therefore, unfortunately, exposed to the nefarious activities of fly tippers, and that's happened over many, many years. And like I say, it was harnessing the power of the local community, harnessing the good people of neighbouring groups, like the Hillingdon group, like the Heston group. We managed to clear, again, tons of waste from Cranford Bridge. And as you can see on the right-hand side, we have secured and protected the precious habitats that we live in. Unfortunately, as we did sort of progress further along the river corridor, going into Way Avenue Park and into Dudset Farm, we were shocked. We were shocked by the historic degradation that had been occurring. And we faced a huge challenge in front of us. Sadly, it was unmanaged land. Nobody was looking after it. And it was, sorry, it's a little picture there, but that was the army of volunteers that we had who cared enough to change it. And that's the power of the local community. And that's where we stand as a powerful force of nature to protect our local riverside and show that we love our riverside. Despite the work that we do, we work very, very hard, and it is the local community that do this, and we can see them. A lot of them are here today wearing their high-vis jackets. This is not all of them. We couldn't get all of them here. But what I would like to say is that it's not only our hard work, but also to what we have allowed to happen is we've shown to the local authority the problems that we have. And sorry, this might come up, it might be really tiny. I can't even read it, so I'll just have to speak from my head. But what we have managed to do is open the eyes to the local council, to our spaces that have been neglected for so long. And through our campaigning, we've been able to distribute the leaflets to the houses that back onto that stretch to prevent them from committing these heinous crimes. We have also we've also got collaboration with the local schools, and they're promoting our work in their newsletters. But we're also formed the working group with, the Way Avenue working group, and that's in collaboration with London Borough of Hounslow, Hillingdon, Friends of River Crane, TCV, and the Crane Valley Partnership. And perhaps the most amazing thing that we've achieved through that and demonstrating what hard work achieves is that space and all along that river corridor has now been granted £250,000 funding to reclaim the riverside. And that is a massive achievement for us. Parkway. Right, this is the challenge that we face. And this is the final bit that I'll probably put to you in terms of showing you the achievements that we can make. But the Parkway, A312, that you're perhaps more familiar with, it's a long stretch of road that is persistently littered, and that is largely owing to the abuse by the truckers. There are 6 lorry laybys across this stretch, 4 of which are in Cranford, 2 of which are in West Heston. And despite the hard work of our volunteers, who may try their best to upkeep this stretch, we are faced with challenges. But those challenges of litter, we think that we are actually curbing it, because we measure the volume that we collected at one time, and we measure the volume that we have collected another time, and we are curbing it. And it's not just down to the action of the volunteers, because we have managed to get the local authorities to install 6 bins. They've never had bins, the truckers. Although they shouldn't be disposing of their waste irresponsibly, it so is. But by giving them the 6 bins of the whole stretch, there's been an improvement. We've also subsequently managed to increase we've got TfL involved in our plans, and TfL have now committed to increasing the frequency of the road closures across the Parkway. This will enable Hounslow highways to cleanse it more often than what it is currently. What else did I need to say on that one? So the bins and more commitment from TfL on that. Sorry. And we keep maintaining that as well. We work hard at it, but at the same time we do bang the drums. Now what will follow through is CAM is been working very hard with KBT, and Gurpreet will explain a bit more about reclaiming the Riverside project.
Hi, my name's Gamaldeep Sandhu. I'm a member of CAG. Firstly, just want to say Ume has been absolutely amazing in persevering and getting CAG the investment and the buy-in from the community. So thank you, Ume. Thank you to Hag as well. You've been true inspiration to us. In fact, you introduced Ume and I. It's without a doubt, we live in a very polluted area and it's massively neglected. I moved to Cranford 10 years ago, didn't see a community there, not as much as I'm seeing right now. It is a historic site, it is in a conservation area, but it's very difficult to see that through all of the congestion and pollution in the area. So one of the things that we've been working on is actually with Keep Breton Tidy and Heathrow Airport. They've actually, through their Better Neighbourhood programme, teamed up with the local schools. So there's a youth programme where they've gone to the schools and they said, oh, you know, which areas do you think that we can make better, look better, or try and add some more greenery to it? The kids actually picked 4 sites. So Cranford Action Group are looking after the Avenue Memorial, Way Park Open Space, community, the Cranford Primary School, and there is a Redwood Estate which is being looked after by Hag. So they had loads of ideas about what they want to do, and that dwindled down to actually what was actually going to be achievable and beneficial to each of those areas. So, for example, for the memorial, one of the ideas was to put a bench there, but because of the level of antisocial behaviour in the area, that was an absolute no. So there was a consultation that happened with the neighbourhood through all of these great ideas. I love trees. I'm sure I was a tree in my past life, so one of the biggest things on this was there's going to be 4 more trees planted on the memorial, which is actually outside my house, which I'm really happy about. But not just that, it just looks better for the area, as well as providing biodiversity to the local nature. We have to think about nutritions that are going into the ground. We talked about rainwater, where is it going to go? As much as it is a conservation site, there is a lot of overdevelopment in the area, and that's going to continue to happen as we know that Heathrow House may be converted into flats. This is a continuous issue that we keep coming across. Ume mentioned Park Lane. Park Lane goes from Cranford into Hillingdon. We have a massive issue there because it's a blind spot and it's also across 2 boroughs. Us being on the edge of a borough is an issue in itself. We also have a lack of engagement from the local businesses. 50% of Cranford is rented property, so lack of engagement from the landlords and the people who are renting those properties as well. So these are little things. Even if it's just making it look better, it's going to go a long way with starting. And I just want to say, if we lived in a better community and the council were more forthcoming with supporting a lot of these things, if we take away litter picking from both Hag and CAG, just imagine how much more we could be doing for the community. So I just wanted to mention that part. So if we go into some of the projects that we're working on, this is the memorial. So as you can see, it was very basic memorial. This site is probably less significant than the one in Heston. All that being is that we actually can't find out when this was put in place and who actually owns it, but it remains somewhere as a point of focus and it is used as a memorial. So some of the things that we've done over the last year is that we've actually planted lavender around the sides and the back of the memorial, and we put rose beds across the front, and across the road from that we have matching rose beds. There are also wild bulbs being planted across, so we wanted something that would grow each year and easy to maintain. And the memorial itself has been repainted and it will be jet washed, and there will be some refurb done to it. That's not all that's happening. Forgive my poor Adobe skills. This is the best I could do. I talked about the 4 trees. There's going to be 4 magnolia trees, pick of white and pink, and there is going to be planting around the existing shrubs that are there, and the shrubs are going to be better maintained to make it look a little bit better, because one of the issues that we have is when people litter, it goes into the shrubs and it's very hard to get out. And we are also, Keep Breton Tidy, also talking to Hounslow Borough Council about solar lighting. Again, this comes back down to antisocial behaviour. That green leads into the park, and there are people who loiter around in that area despite of the fact that there are no bins. It causes more litter and it disturbs the nature. One of the things CAG has also been able to do is enable people like myself who have other interests in the community. So again, I mentioned that I've put myself forward to be chair of the police panel for Cranford. But not only that, we've recently also created a group for Avenue Park. So we now have Friends of Avenue Park, which we're working with Mr. Malik on, looking at how we can have those spaces. And I would love for that building to be converted into a place that someone like the MS Society can actually go and use.
Yeah, I've got another 5 minutes.
Okay, and lastly, this is just some of the stuff done at the primary school. So we put some planters in at the front, matching planters at the back. The key thing here is this is just making the area look better and deterring from fly tipping. The kids in the school have had the opportunity to be involved in this, so this is, again, enabling that buy-in from the community. And I think that's me. Oh, no, one last one, tree planting. So Heathrow and KBT have got 51 trees that they're going to plant, 25 for 25 years of Heathrow engagement, and 26 for the upcoming COP26 that's coming up. So 25 of those trees are going to be planted in Way Avenue open space, and there'll be also a nice little round seat to put there so that people can enjoy the woodland space. Over to you, Gabri.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. So going back to the point that Umi mentioned about reclaiming...
Can I just ask you to just hold on for 1 second? I think the chair is asking for somebody to move suspension of standing orders. We're running... Do you want to say to about 10 past, quarter past? Is that okay, Chair? Thank you, and I apologise for interrupting.
No, that's right, no worries. It won't take that much time. So go back to the point that Umi mentioned about reclaiming the riverside. As many of you would know, the River Crane serves as a lifeline to many habitats through Cranford, through Heathrow, and it also links many of our nature reserves, so Huckabee's Meadow and Crane Bank, for example, and through the work of TCV, Friends of the River Crane and CAG and lots of other local groups, £250,000 grant was granted by the National Lottery Fund, which will help to fund the Reclaim the River project. The project itself will help to restore the river, further develop it so that the local habitat and the environment is not disturbed, is further developed and more accessible to the local community. And the project itself will connect 650 local people in the in the area of Cranford and the surrounding areas to a much more diverse community, given that 84% of people are from a minority ethnic background, and through the project itself, people can easily connect with nature, volunteering opportunities, which in itself will result in better community engagement, further opportunities for people to develop their skills, get involved locally, and just care for the environment in general. And it will help to also reopen the river and the corridor and the nature reserves to the local community, because the problem we face at the moment is not many people know that such spaces exist within an area like Cranford or Heston, and people just don't, if they don't know about it, they're not interested, and that's the problem. And this will make a massive difference, not just to Cranford, not just to Heston, but also to the wider borough, and that's really it, really, and I'll pass it back to me.
Fantastic, thank you so much. And I won't keep you long much more. So I'll probably pass that slide, because I think Heston Action Group, we seem to be following Heston Action Group a lot in terms of securing the grit bins, getting signage everywhere, and just generally trying to improve our space. So I won't go through that, but what I will just say is that we are trying to reducing the usage of the lorry lay-bys by putting a 15-minute stop of how much they can actually stop. But let's see how we go with that one. And again, I say seem to be following in the footsteps of Hag here. We've also so proud of the volunteers who have worked every weekend, dedicated, going home, having to have a shower after just covered in dirt, but they have received that very special royal recognition, which I'm so proud of our group for having done that. Got the centre spread for Hounslow Matters, and we've also got recognition from the former mayor, so we're now trying to get one from the current mayor. Let's see where we go with that. But we've also celebrated our successes. They get fed, they get watered, and they've got live music, and that was our CAG social at Way Avenue open space in the summer, and that was a great time. You're more than welcome to come along next time when we have one. But I think we have very exciting times ahead for Cranford. And just to show you that in pictures, we're trying to get Cranford back on the map. So let's go for that.
Oh, thank you. That's amazing. Thank you. Okay, I'm just going to take one. So now I have to... Were you stretching, or did you have your hand up?
I did have my hand up.
Go on then.
Sorry. Regarding the lay-bys on the Parkway, I am a former HGV driver. The problem you've got is because we've got Heathrow nearby, lorry drivers are entitled to take a 45-minute break. And the problem is you're moving them from one place, but it's not just Hounslow. Kent's got a ban on. Where are you going to allow these lorries to park for 45 minutes or even a 9-hour rest? Because you're moving them from the lay-bys, where they're going to go. A lorry driver will get fined up to £1,000 if he's got an infringement. So you're getting rid of one problem, but then you're creating another problem.
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
but
I think, sorry, have you finished?
Yeah, go on.
Yeah, sorry, no, I think I disagree a little bit down there. And the reason I disagree with that is because they've actually got a place, M4 Services is just around the corner.
Unfortunately, a lot of the foreign lorry drivers will not use it because, for example, I had to stop in the services. It costs £40 a night. You don't get a meal voucher. And if you've been out 9 hours a day, 10 hours a day, you want a proper meal inside you. You don't want McDonald's, you don't want KFC, you don't want Burger King, because that is all the services provide you. The government needs to step up. You go to France, they have a proper enclosed services just before the ferries, and you get everything. People will check your lorries. So it's across the board. It's not just our areas. The government themselves have got to step up and help the haulage industry. This is why we've got this fall in lorries drivers, because people don't want to be in the industry. You get treated like rubbish, services are like rubbish, toilets are rubbish, and if you're a lady in doing the industry, you believe me, you won't want to use the toilets.
Oh, God. So it's okay for them to park there but not to litter? Take their litter with them?
Yeah, it's not,
Yeah.
I think it's not all lorry drivers, it's some of the lorry drivers.
Okay.
No, I hear what you're saying, David. I concur with what you're saying a lot. The trouble we have is that a lot of the I probably, you know, maybe you're quite right to say it's the minority that treat it as a toilet as well as a waste tip, and there does need to be a change. And by trying to get it open, allow them to rest for 15 minutes, might just curb that appetite to distress the environment,
But then you've got to go somewhere else for half hour.
which is the M4 Services. But I hear what you say.
Okay.
I hear what you say.
Thank you.
I don't think we'll ever win this argument,
We
unfortunately.
do need to move on. But thank you. Thanks for that. Thank you, guys.
Thank
you. We're going to move on to the next item on the agenda. Councillor. Oh, Mr. Malik, go on quickly.
Sorry, before we move on next step, can I praise the work of Heston Action Group? Excellent work they've been doing, and in coordination in Cranford Action Group as well. And also, can I praise the work of Cranford Action Group from 3 years, well over 3 years, and till now, the journey, what they achieve, what we all volunteer they achieve, I think is a tremendous. It's amazing. For the last 30 years, I've seen Cranford how was neglected, and since 3 years till now, what their achievement is, this is amazing, and it is beyond imagination. And can I say thank you for each and individual and volunteer their hard work, and that's really amazing, and I'm thankful for their hard work and what I observed over the year. With this, Chair, can I move a motion for both Heston Action Group and Cranford Action Group on behalf of Cranford and Heston Area Forum, formally recognize their contribution and their work for the community, which they deserve. On behalf of Heston Cranford Area Forum, can we write a letter formally to recognize their work over the year, what they have achieved? And Thank you.
No, that's fine. Totally understand. So lovely. Thank you very much for having us here. I'm Michelle Hutchinson. I'm one of the Thriving Communities grant managers, and
I'm Kate Wilson, the other Thriving Communities grant manager.
And I'd just like to say that with Hag and Hag, they've actually both received funding from the Thriving Communities grant, which it's great. The amount of work that they both do is amazing. So it's lovely to hear all the good news stories coming out from them.
Great, okay, so we're here this evening just to talk very briefly and answer any questions that we can about some of our funding streams. The main reason we're here is because we've got a brand new funding stream called the Your Neighbourhood Grant, which is a grant specifically for organisations, charities, voluntary groups or groups of residents who would like to apply for funding of up to £1,000, working together closely with their local ward councillors. And to answer your question earlier with regards to how that might work in terms of certain councillors sort of coming together and using their allocation, because this is the first time that this grant has run, we're very open to kind of having those discussions directly with you guys. So if there is an idea that you want to bring forward and work flexibly with us, then please do get in touch. So in this financial year, there's £3,000 per ward available. And, sorry, that's okay. There we go. We have a few kind of key priority areas, but this is also quite open. So if there are needs that come from within your communities that you're keen to sort of seek funding for, then we can be flexible with this as well. So the kind of key areas are making the community greener by improving the local environment, which obviously reflects very well on some of the work that we've just been hearing about. Responding to needs within the local community, improving health and well-being, and increasing the level of community engagement and interaction. So I think Michelle will move on to talk a bit more.
So with the Your Neighbourhood grant and with the majority of all of our grants, with this Your Neighbourhood grant, it will close on the 1st of March 2022. I know it sounds really long away, but actually it isn't. It's just around the corner. Applications can be from community organisations or informal groups of residents, so they don't have to have a constitution or anything like that. It could be a group of residents that gets together. With this grant, they will need to be backed by the local councillor. So that's why we really want that community engagement, that partnership working to get a application in. Always chat to me and Kate. We're always via email, on the phone to talk about your ideas. So our email's up there as well. And so that part, there we go. That part of that, we've got the Your Neighbourhood grant, which is one element of our grant. So we're the Thriving Communities Funds, and we have a range of different funding streams as well. So we've got the small grant, which is up to £1,000 for again, voluntary groups, organisations, or a group of residents. We are taking applications up until the 1st of March 2022. We also have our revenue grants, which is up to £25,000. Our round 2 is open until the 1st of November. We had round 1 and we funded 19 projects across the borough, which is great as well. We've also got our capital grants, and this is a brand new project funding stream for us to look after. It's from the community, the local community infrastructure levy. And it's a two-way process. Residents or groups can put in an expression of interest. So let's just say with a park, maybe a group of residents say, oh, our playground is really, really tired and it needs doing up. This is really, really sad. They come to us with an idea to say, this is what we need. We then work with parks and the people who put in the playground. They then develop with the residents a bid, and then the council do that work if they are successful. So it's really talking about that whole engagement, working with the community, working with the organisations and with teams across the council. Again, talk to me and Kate about any funding ideas, any ideas that you have, any projects that have come up. Maybe there's an interest within your community, and just talk to us. there are our contact details. We are part of the Community Partnerships Unit team. So yeah, talk to us. We're here. We do like to chat. Many people will know that I like to chat, and so does Kate. So thank you very much for listening to us. If you have any questions?
There is a lovely lady sitting there. She contacted me just a couple of weeks ago, actually, about that patch of land next to your house. Would you be able to just maybe sort of after the meeting discuss, or you could sort of raise your question now because it was going to go into the open forum, and then maybe touch base with the 2 action groups as well. But if these guys could help, if you could just raise it, because it would be good knowledge for us as well.
So hi there. So I'm not sure if you are aware of St. Michael's and Martin School, Wellington Road North. I'm not sure how many of you know these schools. We live just by them, and well, next door. And there's a green patch of land right in front of us, so at our doorstep. And there are trees, and it's not well maintained. And I know this might not come across very well with some people, but we want it fully revamped. We want this area to be cleared. There's a wall that's against these trees where people dump everything, washing machine, feces, pet feces. And what people don't realize is this area is not on an alleyway or in a park 5 miles away. This is right next to a St. Martin, St. Michael schools on a main road on Wellington Road North. And this should not be occurring, you know. Yeah, every weekend people are coming and dumping. And what we're asking is that if you can revamp, meaning clear the trees, remove the wall that's separating the terraced houses from this land, and plant some cherry blossom trees that are, people have said it's soft landscaping. This area that I'm describing is not soft landscaping. If you take a corner, if you just walk a few minutes on the Bath Road, you'll see what soft landscaping looks like. There's a tree planted, and 5 meters away, there's another tree planted. There's a lovely green patch. This is not soft landscaping. This is a dump site. It's become a dump site. And I think you can get even the schools involved. If you revamp the area, it's a huge land. And if you revamp it correctly, I think you will see tremendous, a reaction towards this by teachers, students who walk past this area every single day. There's 3 schools nearby. This area, why it's been neglected for so long, it begs the question. CCTV cameras, I think someone else mentioned it here, that should be placed on this area. It's begging, someone to pick up this project. It will attract positively with the residents, and it just needs to. I know people want to plant trees, but I think this area it needs to be cleared first completely and paved again, and trees to be planted in a way that actually looks nice and works for the community, not just for the rodents, and becoming a place where people just don't go anymore.
No, I think that's a great idea. Maybe after the meeting we can take your details, and then maybe I can do a visit. We can come out. I can see who owns the land, see what teams. But yeah, I think something like that would be a real benefit towards the community, and it would fit in with a lot of our funding streams. And again, like the chair was saying, linking up with Hag and CAG, but yeah, definitely. So maybe after the meeting, if I could take your details, and then we can discuss. Let me put my teeth back in. About how we can move this forward. Does that sound okay?
Amazing, thank you. And Navdeep, were you going to say something?
Thanks, Michelle. So there used to be, well, I think there may still be, a correlation between development of an area and the funding available for community projects, because obviously if an area gets overdeveloped, there's more people there, you need more investment in community resources. Heston and Hounslow West is seeing and Cranford as well, is seeing quite prolific development. So we've got the plan to develop New Heston Road, all of the houses on the south side of that. We've got the massive development in Hounslow West, which affects obviously Heston Central Ward to some extent. We've got developments in Cranford with Heathrow House. And we've also got the massive Rectory Park development, which seems to have been mothballed but may come back to life. The funding, the SIL funding that would be generated from that, would that be directed to the area, or would it be put in a fund for wider use across the borough? We're not averse to sharing across the borough. In fact, we're a very one borough focused group. But we do think that where you do have overdevelopment and over impact, you need to then correspond that with investment in that area. And one of the things that concerned us about the Rectory Park, I'm assuming this is an old document, but the Rectory Park original planning permission had a penalty for their late development of the park, which would connect Cranford and Heston, but the penalty was payable to the improvement of Gunsbury Park. And for us, that was a bit of a surprise, because we felt that if there was a penalty, it should go to the improvement of Rectory Park for the benefit of the residents affected by the trucks doing the construction work over there. And then the only other question I've got, Michelle, which is more of a generic one, which is, can we be a bit more imaginative about how funding is used? Because there are non-tangible things like communication exercises, leaflet drops, etc. But also, our constant problem with Hounslow highways is they will say, well, we could do that, but we just can't afford it. We can't afford to put those trees in. We can't afford to water them. We can't afford to put a litter picker there because we have a set budget. But in fact, from a thriving community perspective, some additional funding might just make the difference between us making a positive community impact versus a negative one. So I'm just wondering whether that could be explored in terms of how funding works.
Yeah, I mean, with the first aspect of your question about the community infrastructure levy, we get it through the team, and it is distributed borough-wide, but actually we try and make sure that it is linked to that there is a clear spread, there is an even spread. And actually what's been quite nice is there have been, just this financial year, 2 projects in the Heston area, and last year we also had Hag with the Sutton Lane Community Garden, which is quite nice. But yeah, so there will be a spread, so that, because there are some areas in the past that just had it all the time and there wasn't that even spread. So we will have conversations with community groups and residents. That's what we want to see, what you guys want, what's happening within your area. But yeah, we do try and make sure that there is an even spread, so it's not just situated all in one area and nothing gets...
Michelle, if residents don't come forward from a particular area, so let's say some areas are Feltham, let's say there's no Feltham Action Group, then how do you deal with that? Because the more vocal groups will be like the Abundance Londons, the Hags and the Cags, very more vocal, but there might be other groups where community engagement's harder, where they're underrepresented.
Absolutely.
So we've just got to make sure it's fair across the patch.
So we've had, my old job, I used to be community engagement, so we would always go out and talk to people. We would talk to teams within the council. We don't always have groups coming up to us. We do have residents who are like, they're concerned about their area, so they would want something to happen, and it's about making those conversations. Me and Kate, we're not sitting in the office. We're out there, we're talking to people, because the work won't come to us. We have to go to the work. So we'll have that. It's that continuous conversation and that communication. So yeah. And you had another question which I've forgotten. Sorry.
More imaginative ways of using money to, in fact, improve council services in some of the areas where, they're limited or they're capped in what they can do. So, our population's probably doubled, but our street cleansing has reduced by half, and it's because of budgetary issues. Yeah. So what we need is help with that, because otherwise it can't be funded.
Yeah, I mean, obviously we can't top up people's budgets, but if there was a project and if something was linked to them, they can do project management, and we can do it that way. So there are different ways of looking into funding bids and projects. So yeah, we can always be a bit creative and have a chat with people.
Amazing.
Does that answer the questions?
Yep, that's good. And do you have any leaflets with you tonight?
Yes, so I think most people have got one, and there's some on the table.
Yeah, there's one for you if you want to grab this.
Yeah, so they're all up there. So.
Amazing, thank you. We're not going to go to the open forum because we've had so many presentations and we have taken quite a few questions. So date of the next meeting is 2nd of February next year. It will be at 6:30, but I can't promise it's going to be back here. We might go to a local community centre. Is that okay? Thank you, and have a good rest of the night. Thank you. Stay safe. And don't forget your booster jabs, please.